February 4, 2014. We have just returned from closed session where we gave direction to our negotiator concerning topics of negotiations, and we discussed student expulsions. I would like to invite Denise Tungold to come forward and lead us in the pledge.
Everybody please stand. Hand over their heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Unfortunately, our superintendent is not with us this evening. He had the pleasure of attending the Super Bowl over the weekend and became stranded like other travelers, and we believe he's on his way home now. So in the meantime, Mr. Irwin will take over Mr. Markin's role, or Dr. Markin's role. So I would like to invite the board to make a motion to approve the agenda or make recommendations to change it.
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please vote. 6 ayes. Thank you. Next, we move on to student council reports and school spotlight presentation. Mr. Irwin, would you like to call our folks forward?
Yes, thank you, President Thomas. Newark Junior High School, yep, there they are. There we go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you remembered, I am Yana Makadaig, and I am the Vice President of Newark Junior High School. Today, I will be talking about the student store, the upcoming dance, future events, art class t-shirts, and value of the month. The first topic I will be talking about is the student store. We are currently selling beanies for $10 with ASB and $15 without. Speaking of selling things, the art class has made t-shirts to raise money for their art elective, and it costs $15. The next topic I will be talking about is our upcoming dance in the cafeteria this Friday. We are selling tickets to these dances at the student store 2 to 3 days prior to the event. The theme of the dance is A Night in Paris. It is semi-formal. Tickets will be sold for $3 with ASB and $5 without. This following topic is about the Kaiser Permanente hosting Nightmare on Puberty Street for the 7th graders at our school sometime in the future. Last but not least is the value of the month, which is being kind. We are currently hanging up posters and putting them up around the school to promote this topic and encourage people to be kind. Thank you for listening. Is there any questions?
Good morning, or good evening, sorry. I want to excuse for being for stuttering, because I'm really excited that it's music night, and that was my elementary, so I'm just yeah. All right. Today I'll be talking about Pennies for Patients, as well as girls and boys basketball. Pennies for Patients, teachers and staff have agreed to do something crazy to encourage students to donate their loose change. Mr. Collette will dye his hair hot pink for $1,500. Miss Rosewood will dye her hair purple for $1,000. Mr. Montoya will dye his hair teal for $1,500. Mr. Brose will dye his hair and his beard for $1,200. Miss Eddings will sing Royals in the quad with Miss Haley, Miss Casey, and Miss Merrill backup dancing as she sings for $1,500. Luckily, I got them to do that. So I was like, yes. And boys basketball season just ended. The 7th grade boys had a record of 8-2, while 8th grader boys, who were tied for first place, ended the season with a 7-3 record. At the moment, 8th grade boys are in championships that are held at Centerville. 7th and 8th grade girls basketball just started. We're practicing to get that 10-0 perfect season this year. The first game will be held next Tuesday against Centerville at home. Hope to see you guys there, and so you guys can see how loud the students and the parents get while we're playing. Go Cougars. Thank you.
Great, thank you, ladies. From McGregor, we have Edelweiss and Marion.
Good evening, President Thomas, Vice President Mensinger, Board Members, Superintendent Dr. Markin, students and parents. I'm Edwin Moala, a sophomore at Bridgepoint High School, and we are college-bound students, and we are the best test takers that score great on the test. We have date to officially open the McGregor Library as Thursday, February 27th at 7 o'clock p.m. Obviously, we will host the grand opening in the McGregor Library. We want to honor the many people that made the project happen. We plan on having student speakers and refreshments. We look forward to seeing you there. If you can make it. The heat in the cafeteria was turned on and you could feel the warmth. That is a huge deal for the tall kids especially. This opens up many possibilities for us to use the cafeteria at night for dances, movies, and other student events. Thank you for taking this monumental task.
We have 15 new kids arrived and settled, and we have new classes and schedules coming out tomorrow. This happens every quarter, but it's even bigger at the beginning of the semester. Mr. Orput says it's like flying an airplane while making repairs. We have not moved ahead too much with prom. We have new leadership kids, and we need to involve them. We need a committee and subcommittees to plan the decorations, food, music, and security, as well as the location. The fitness room is moving ahead, and now that the library project is complete, like the library, the fitness room will be done without any money as we are seeking donations for equipment, stationary bikes, and sound system stuff. This will be great, especially on rainy days. Culinary arts and business communication and job preparation classrooms. Mr. Orput is working with planners to build 2 ROP classrooms for Bridgepoint and Crossroad kids. He's working on a culinary arts and business communication and job preparation classrooms. The business communication and job preparation classroom will be part computer lab and part traditional classroom where students will work on resumes, cover letters, college applications, trade school applications, online applications, interviewing skills, and other stuff that will help them with college or career technical education after the student leaves McGregor.
Dodgeball. We are planning our dodgeball tournament. Students are excited because they get to unleash their pent-up aggression and anger in a healthy, productive, active, and fun way. Do you guys have any questions?
When did you say the opening for the library is again?
It will be on February 27th on Thursday at 7 p.m.
What time? 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we would like to thank Nancy Thomas for donations. And this is a Nancy Thomas. This is a thank you card from leadership class from McGregor High.
You're so welcome. Thanks for all you do, and I'm looking forward to having you have a good time at your prom.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. As executive staff, this evening is kind of playing change of chairs here. I've asked Dr. Hilberg if she would do the part that I normally do, which is on the spotlight, and I've already made my first mistake, so let's keep count. 1. Thank you, Member Stadler. Of course, our student board member, Nicole.
It is a very busy start to our second semester. Today, 12th and 11th graders took the CASI test. The freshman class will be attending the Secrets Assembly next Tuesday. Drama Club's production of Harvey is February 8th at 7 p.m. and February 9th at 2 p.m. Tickets are on sale for $10 pre-sale and $12 at the door. Seniors still have the opportunity to sign up for grad night. Spots for the March SAT at Newark Memorial are still available. Tutoring is available Friday after school. Students can also be reading buddies at the Newark Library. The University of California Cosmos program is now accepting applicants for their 4-week intense summer learning program for students interested in science and mathematics. The School of Engineering at Santa Clara University has programs available for juniors interested in engineering, and the Arthritis Foundation is accepting applications for their 2014 Summer Science Internship Program. Interact is hosting a blood drive in collaboration with our local Red Cross on March 4th and 5th. Details will be let out soon, and hopefully you guys can all come. There's a girls' basketball game on Tuesday, February 4th, tonight, with a chance to take the half-court shot in order to win a free prom ticket. Tickets are now on sale for the Newark and Moreau boys basketball game tomorrow, February 5th at Moreau.
Girls lacrosse tryouts are approaching as well as football workouts, and food fair is this Friday, so come celebrate your Valentine's Day with us and support our clubs on campus. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Now, before we do our spotlight on music, I would like to ask Dr. Hilberg if she would do our spotlight. Thank you.
Good evening. I am thrilled that I have the opportunity this evening to present these awards to two very deserving people. And so what I'd like the awardees to do is, if you wouldn't mind, I would like you to come up one at a time, please. So Karen Benton, will you please join me? So, what do you imagine when you think of an exemplary kindergarten teacher? Those best qualities you just imagined perfectly describe Music School's spotlighted, certificated employee, Karen Benton. She is calm and patient, yet holds high expectations for her students. Her classroom is filled with literature, writing pieces, and colorful art. If you walk in the door, you may find students working quietly and cooperatively while she supports emerging readers at the side table. One can immediately sense high-quality learning and a sense of safety and community. Mrs. Benton is also active outside the classroom. She is a teacher advisor for the Student Council, as well as a part of the district's Committee on Common Core. Karen's insightful comments and contributions during professional learning committee meetings have pushed the staff's continual learning and reflective process. Music Elementary is lucky to have the talents of Mrs. Karen Benton on staff. Congratulations. Okay, and now I would like to ask someone I've known for a number of years and whom I really admire, Dolores Franco. Could you please join me? Music School is honored to have Dolores Franco as part of the music family. She holds many roles on campus. Primarily, she is the bilingual instructional aide for grades K through 2. Mrs. Franco also proctors yearly CELT testing, hosts an after-school intervention class for English learners, and translates on a daily basis for parents and staff. She's also been the backbone of our English Language Advisory Committee, in which she plans and co-facilitates. Mrs. Franco helped organize and implement music's first ballet folklorico dance troupe with over 50 boys and girls participating. Students love working with her, and parents trust her. Mrs. Franco is simply an irreplaceable asset to Music Elementary. Congratulations. Thank you. That was fun.
Great, thank you, Celeste. I'd like to now introduce the principal of Music Elementary, Catherine Ingham Waters.
Good evening, school board trustees and district management team, parents, students, and members of the community. I am honored to present tonight on behalf of Music Elementary School. My name is Catherine Ingham Waters, and I'm proud to be here tonight as a first-year principal at this amazing school. I am myself a product of Newark schools, kindergarten to 12th grade, and I have taught in this district for the previous 13 years. And I am now even a parent of a Newark Unified student, as my son is in kindergarten. Tonight I am joined with members of our student council and teacher leaders. Ashley Liebrick is an energetic teacher of our multi-grade 2-3 class, and Nicole Tovar is our fantastic second grade teacher and is currently taking courses to pursue her preliminary administrative credential at Cal State East Bay. Our spotlight on learning centers around the construction theme that kicked off the year at our back to school assembly in August. The phrase rebuilding together does not indicate that anything is broken and actually needs rebuilding. It means we are in a transition time in education. We are working towards full implementation of Common Core. We are learning a new assessment system. We are implementing both site and district goals. Join me in thinking about these words in our vital roles in education. Rebuild, reflect, revise, rejuvenate, renew, refresh, re-energize. Reflect. Educators are lifelong learners, but being a smart learner is looking back and reflecting on past growth in order to move forward. We will begin with some reflection on our school data. As you can see, over the last 5 years, music has seen tremendous growth in its academic performance index. This last spring, we gained an additional 4 points for an overall API of 832. 832 far exceeds the state target of 800. However, we continue to want high achievement for all music children, and we have no doubt that we can get to 900. Looking at the data in a different way, we can reflect on the gains and losses over the years. The dark blue bar indicates a goal of a 5-point gain. The light blue bar shows the actual gain. Looking back at 2012 with an incredible gain of 41 points, it makes sense that we evened out a bit this year with a 4-point gain. Remember, we're not just reflecting on 1 year, but on the trends over time. When I first started my position at Music, I learned a lot about program improvement in a very short amount of time. I felt a little disheartened that Music continues down the program improvement route despite the notable gains as a school overall, and as you can see for our significant groups. You might wonder why there's a picture of a scale there. A colleague of mine told me an anecdote that's helped me put things into perspective. You go on a diet to lose 10 pounds in 2 months. You walk, you drink water, you work out, you eat right, you start feeling better. Your clothes feel better, you have more energy. After 2 months, you step on that scale, and guess what? You lost 9.8 pounds. So you ask yourself, did I succeed or did I fail? Did you meet your goal? No, you didn't. Not only can I relate to that diet story on a personal level, but it really helps me put into perspective the fact that music school has taken focused steps to increase student achievement. And our API shows it, and we're so happy to celebrate that. However, because we did not meet safe harbor in 2 areas for 2 years, we have moved on to program improvement year 4. Here is a 3-year reflection on our AYP, what percentage of students scored proficient or above in ELA and math. Again, looking at trends over time, we are celebrating our incremental steps up. Revise. Again, looking at our school-wide AYP, we celebrate our growth, the dark blue columns. But this bar graph shows how many students are not yet proficient, the light blue columns. What are we doing about it? We align our school plan for student achievement, which includes our categorical funds, to address the needs of our significant groups not yet proficient. To highlight the answer, what are we doing about it? We have a full-time reading intervention teacher and a full-time bilingual aide. We do a focused English language arts rotation for our upper grade students, as well as a strong response to intervention model with our resource teacher and aide. We collaborate as a school community, as well as in grade level groups, and continue our professional development, both site and district based. These activities help us to revise our practices, moving forward. Rejuvenate. We have many changes heading our way. Music Elementary is feeling rejuvenated as we move away from STAR testing and transition to Common Core state standards. We are increasing our knowledge of the new assessment, Smarter Balanced. All teachers have taken the practice test, identified what technology skills students will need, and how the questions and tasks are presented. We are focused on understanding rigor in 3 areas: rigor in teacher questioning, rigor in student talk, and rigor in student tasks. We are adjusting what we ask our students to do to go deeper with their learning. Music teachers implement the structures Daily 5 and Cafe in order to provide small group intensive instruction in reading. Lastly, we are one of 2 schools to pilot a Common Core aligned Writers Workshop curriculum called Units of Study. I'd like to welcome 2nd grade teacher and teacher leader Nicole Tovar to help me share about our work with Units of Study.
Good evening. This year's teachers at Music Elementary are enthusiastically stepping up to teach writing in an innovative way through Writers Workshop. For many of our teachers, this means reflecting on our writing practice and looking at our writing in a whole new way. Writers Workshop is taught daily and has predictable routine for students to expect. Workshop time begins on the carpet or a central meeting area with a 10 to 15 minute mini lesson. This time is followed by 20 to 30 minutes of students working at their desks. During the writing time, teachers may be guiding a small group or conferring with students. Following the writing time is a wrap-up or group share, which takes about 15 minutes. For example, teachers might have students share their writing whole class or in partnerships. The exciting thing about Writers Workshop is that students have a lot of choice in not only what they write, but how they go about writing it. Lucy Calkins says in one of her books, you can see on the quote on the PowerPoint, in the writing workshop, it may be rare for the teacher to determine the topic. The subject will almost always be chosen by the writer. Instead of assigning topics, the teacher teaches a skill or a concept for the writer to keep in mind and to use as needed. Teachers and students alike are in the learning phase of the writing workshop at music school. Teachers are working hard to read the new curriculum, gather materials, and plan engaging workshop lessons. Students are learning new routines and more rigorous expectations. Moreover, because the workshop model is the same and it builds on itself academically throughout the elementary grades, the goal would be that students would seamlessly transition year to year in the various classrooms. Looking ahead to the summer, teachers are excited for training opportunities to enhance their Writers Workshop lessons. And today we actually had some training opportunities over at Snow Elementary with some of the teachers there too, which was really exciting for us. I'd now like to introduce the 2-3 multi-grade teacher and teacher leader, Ashley Liebrick, to present on the safety plan. Thank you.
Good evening. Renew. One of the district's goals this year is on safety. The goal is to provide a safe and nurturing environment that promotes the social, emotional, physical, and intellectual health and growth of every student and every adult. The safety team at Music has spent quite a bit of time revising our school's disaster plan and updating our emergency binders. We have inventoried and replenished our emergency backpacks with new supplies, including batteries, snacks, flashlights, and first aid kits. We have revisited our fire, lockdown, and earthquake drills. Each month, we have a fire drill as well as either a lockdown or earthquake drill to ensure the staff and students are familiar with the procedures. The safety team also thought about each staff member's experience, and we strategically placed them into our incident command system. We then had each team meet to read and understand their role and solve any logistical issues that came about. Finally, we are looking forward to working with John Warren on how to prepare for a full evacuation drill this spring.
Refresh. I don't know about you, but this is my favorite part of this type of presentation. Nothing is more refreshing than to hear students talk enthusiastically about their school. I would like to introduce our student council, Jalen, Amanda, Isabel, and Denise. I'd also like to thank our advisors, Mrs. Tom, Ms. Carlson, and Mrs. Benton.
Hi, my name is Jalen Holloway. I am Secretary of Student Council. I'm in 6th grade. In Student Council, we do some community service projects. The first project we did was the Viola Blythe Canned Food Drive. Students brought in canned or boxed goods for people in need of food. This year, we brought in 960 cans. Another community service project we do is Pennies for Patients, where students bring in spare change to help people with leukemia and lymphoma. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm in 5th grade and I'm the Student Council Treasurer. Tonight I'm going to be talking about our fundraisers here at Music School. I'm going to start off with talking about our candygram sales. All of Student Council work together to sell the candygrams. The candygram is something you can give to anyone in Music School. It's a very nice way to make someone's day. We also sell hot chocolate before school in the months of January and February. Everybody enjoys the hot chocolate and we're always busy. We also have movie night where families come out to watch a movie. Everybody always enjoys movie night, and so do I. The last thing I'm going to talk about is our Otter Pop sales. We always sell Otter Pops when it gets nice and warm. Everyone, again, always enjoys a cool and yummy Otter Pop on a nice warm day. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Isabel Dominguez. I'm the Vice President of Student Council here at Music School. This year I'm in 6th grade in Mr. Montoya's class. This evening I'm here to tell you about what we are doing in the Student Council to build school community. We have lots of different spirit days like PJ and Stuffed Animal Day, Character Day, Future Career Day, Crazy Day, and Sports Day. We have 2 raffles for the students that participate, one for 1st through 3rd grade and another for 4th through 6th grade. Students can win prizes such as gift cards, erasers, shirts, lanyards, and drawstring bags. This year, we have also combined a couple of spirit days with other school events. For example, Sports Day with a walkathon, Character Day with a cleanup day, Future Career Day with a reading day, and Crazy Day with hula hoop day. With offering these types of activities, we hope to have more participation from our students. This way, we are sure that we are continuing to build our school to be the best it can. Thank you for your time this evening.
Hi, my name is Denise Tunwell. I'm a 5th grader and president of Student Council. I'd like to talk about how Student Council gives back to Music School. For Teacher Appreciation Week, we thank the teachers and staff at Music School for all their hard work. In the past, we've surprised the teachers and staff by cleaning and decorating the staff room. Another thing Student Council has done for them is set up the copy room. We decorated and cleaned it so that it looks neat. Student Council has also purchased playground equipment and school supplies and made donations to the 6th grade for their graduation. Thank you for your time and attention this evening to hear all about the great things Student Council has offered at Music School.
Good job.
Yes.
Another refreshing program at our school that I'd like to highlight is the Ballet Folklorico dance troupes. The ELAC parents have coordinated an after-school enrichment class for Ballet Folklorico, and over 50 students have signed up to participate. They are working on performances for our annual Taste of Nations event in May to correspond to Cinco de Mayo. This is significant for many reasons. First of all, the ELAC committee is becoming more involved with creating student programs for their children. Second, our fantastic PTA sponsors the Taste of Nations event, and so this will be a reason for these 2 groups to come together and work together. Last but not least, the students are participating in a school-sponsored event that honors their heritage or provides students with an experience with a different culture. You are all invited to our Taste of Nations event on the evening of May 9th. Finally, I'd like to once again acknowledge our outstanding teacher and classified staff. Once a month, we recognize outstanding coworkers, keeping with the theme this year. And every month, we award each other re-energizing awards. So this month's awards will be presented once again to Karen Benton and Dolores Franco. On behalf of the music community, I'd like to thank you for your attention and interest in our amazing school. I hope you were able to hear and see how Music Elementary is rebuilding together as we move forward with the many changes in education. Thank you and good evening.
Ms. Ingham Waters, would you mind introducing the parents that are here so we can recognize them as well, and maybe then point out the back bulletin board?
Sure, I do see a couple of parents from our ELAC committee, which is very touching that they have joined tonight. If you can raise your hand and wave. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. We also have the president of our PTA, Tammy Mackey, who does quite a bit for our school, so thank you, Tammy. We have all of the parents of our student council members who spoke today, so if you can raise your hand to be acknowledged. Last but not least, we have a variety of staff members who came to support and represent tonight, so if you can please raise your hand.
And I believe we have Mr. Mensinger would like to make a comment or ask a question.
Great.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for the excellent report. You know, we've heard the weight loss analogy a number of times, but it's never more relevant than this evening when you look back through the years, year over year growth, and putting you, as you move up, sort of, if you can think of it as a rock curve, when you move up towards the top, it gets extremely hard, extremely difficult to move even a small amount. So while you say you may not have met a five-point goal, but a 4-point goal is much more difficult where you're at now on the curve than where, you know, say it would have been 5 years ago. So, and that's just a testament to the dedication of the staff and the teachers and everyone at the school. So, that didn't slip by me, by the way.
Thank you.
So I wanted to mention that. You did mention that there were 2 areas in which you're safe harbor. What areas are those, and exactly what are you doing right now for in those areas to kind of boost those areas?
Great question, thank you. We did not meet safe harbor in 2 areas 2 years in a row. The first area is overall English language arts, and the second area is the socioeconomically disadvantaged significant group in math. So part of our work in Program Improvement Year 4, under the direction of Celeste Hilberg, is meeting and identifying an action plan for where we are in program improvement. And there's a variety of things that you can do, choose from, if you will, where you should focus your energy. We have focused on 2 areas where we are in program improvement. The first one is in curriculum, and the second one is in professional development. The curriculum that we are implementing this year is focusing on Writer's Workshop, like Nicole Tovar shared, the units of study. So our focus is on curriculum and also looking for ways to provide professional development, not only with the district's initiatives, but what we can do as a site relating to our SIPSA and categorical funding.
Thank you.
Mr. Rod? Just one more follow-up real quick. I saw on CNN something that I thought that was very important. And it was those states that are doing Common Core, that have already implemented Common Core. And the teachers overwhelmingly said, stop telling us how to do it. give us the tools to do our job. Okay, and that really resonated with me, you know. So the question is, you know, we've told you how to do it. You know how to do it. We don't need to tell these teachers how to teach. They know how to do it. The question is, do you have the tools that you need to do what we're asking you to do?
That's also a great question, and I'll tap into my experience being a 13-year NUSD teacher as recently as last year, so I really have my teacher lens on. And what stands out for me in Common Core state standards is that I, as a teacher, would feel autonomy. I would feel a sense of creativity, a sense of I am addressing the standards in the best way that I know how. And I can once again be creative, and I once again have autonomy. And so the joy in teaching is, yes, the standards are guiding me, but I can use more than one or two resources to help the students meet that standard. So if it's using our Houghton Mifflin anthology, a really great story or lesson from there, great. If it's another book or story that I've come across that I know will resonate with my students, great. So I think as a leader at my school, as we learn about Common Core together, I really want to promote and give them a little bit of freedom and autonomy to be creative and use whatever resources they need. I do feel like we have a good variety of resources, but part of our professional development and release time this year is to work with each other at different grade, at different sites, but within the same grade, so we can pull our resources together and share ideas, see what's already out there, see what we already have, and work towards the standards.
Thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Ms. Ingham Waters, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to express my thanks to the staff at Music and to the parents. When you get into that, you know, performance issue, you know, in performance, a lot of times, you know, there is a little bit, you know, where some parents might want to leave and even staff might want to decide to transfer, and that hasn't happened at Music, and it's because the wonderful staff and it's a very dedicated staff. I think Music is probably, I think it's our oldest school, if I'm not mistaken, because our dare officer Boga used to always tell me that because he went to music school. But you know, the staff there, and I just want to congratulate the staff and the parents for hanging in there. And then the other thing is coming off of a year where they have a 41%, and you know, you could just, you know, take a deep breath and say, hey, I'm already there, and you go over 800, which is something you aim for, and they still had improvement, and it shows the dedication of your staff, not only the teachers but your classified staff and the management staff in continuing to work to improve the school. Now, this was your first year, and I know we had to kind of twitch your a little bit. I just was hoping that you could share with us your experience because, I mean, you've been with us a while, as like you said, as a teacher and with summer school, and you're taking over a school that had a principal that had been there a while. Can you share with us your experience? Hopefully, all positive.
I have a smile tonight. I would be happy to. I love this district, and so to feel the support to take this next step in my career was one of the best compliments I've ever received. And to go to a school with some outstanding gains and a strong leadership and a strong, very cohesive group, yes, I felt overwhelmed. I still feel overwhelmed at times, but I related, I think, back to the year 2000 when I was a brand new teacher at Bunker Elementary. Every day I came home utterly exhausted and wiped, every single day. And every single morning I got up and got ready, had a smile on my face, and started fresh. What's important to me is building relationships this year. The paperwork will be there. It'll be there at 9 in the morning. It'll be there at 4 in the afternoon. It'll be there at 9 p.m. What's important to me is to be out in front of the school, greet parents, greet students, greet staff, talk to them, be in the classroom, sit down on the carpet with the kids, read a story, play Foursquare with them. So that's really rejuvenating to me. And it makes going back to that office work, say at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I have nice memories of the day.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stadler?
I just wanted to know if you would explain to us the backboard, the back wall,
Oh, of course.
the whole back wall.
Sure. So we have 2 teachers, Miss Carlson and Miss Trickle, who collected work from all of the staff members. And so they're going with the February theme of Valentine's Day to add some hearts in pink. The Heart of Music is the theme. And we have a collection of academic subjects such as science and social studies and reading. You can see some teacher charts and a lot of finished student work. I love art, I love social studies, I love science, I love reading, etc. So we like to show student work from kindergarten all the way to 6th grade and the variety of subjects that we are teaching at our school.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Ingham Waters. And in keeping with the re-theme, we will remember this wonderful presentation this evening.
Thank you. Thanks.
And we know that students have homework to do, and parents and staff have work to do as well. And so feel free to leave if you'd like. So next we move on to announcements.
Great. Thank you, President Thomas. I just have a few that Dr. Markin has asked me to pass on. The Superintendent's Council will be meeting this Friday morning. The 40th Annual Black History Program is on Saturday, February 8th at the Newark Community Center. Just a reminder that Monday, February 10th is a non-student day, and all schools and the district office will be closed. Love Newark's Elegant Affair will be held on February 14th at the Newark Pavilion. And the Newark Memorial High School Athletic Crab Feed will be held on March 22nd. So buy your tickets. Thank you.
Thank you. So next we move on to staff reports, and I will ask you to introduce the IT update.
Great. Thank you again, President Thomas. This evening, Larry Simon, who is our IT network manager, has a staff report on where we're at with some changes in technology. Mr. Simon.
Hello. So I'm here to talk a little bit about some of the challenges we're going to face coming up with Smarter Balanced, and a platform we think we should adopt to try and address some of those challenges. So the first thing is that online assessments are coming. They're starting this year. We're not going to be, I guess the word would be graded on them this year, but we're all going to have to participate. All 3rd through 8th grade students are going to be required to take the field test this year, this spring. I believe our test dates are April 7th through mid-May. A sampling of upper grade students will also be required to test. And so we went around and we, on paper, we met all the requirements for it. We were going to be ready to test. But then we went around and we started assessing our current technology, and we found that we were going to make it very difficult for our students to test. It was just going to be a really bad experience for them to try and take these tests on our existing computers. So we needed to identify a modern, Smarter Balance approved platform, but we also need it to be able to be used outside of testing. If we buy computers for testing, we want to be able to use them the other 11 months of the year, right? They can't just be testing devices. So we think that Google Apps and Chromebooks are a great device for this. Some of the benefits to using them for the Smarter Balanced assessments are they're fast, and some of these benefits can just be more broadly applied. They're very fast. They turn on within under 10 seconds. They work very well. And that's in large part because they're entirely web-based. That's all these machines are. They're just a portal to the internet. So really anything you can do on a Chromebook, you can do on a desktop computer or a laptop computer, but they have some other benefits in that they're cheap and they're fast. They're also consistent, which it's hard to sell this component, but it is really important. When a kid logs into one Chromebook or the next Chromebook, they'll get the exact same thing. So this means there's no being tied to a specific computer in the lab, a specific computer on a cart. Kids can go to any Chromebook or log in from their homes and get all of their work wherever they are. They're very manageable and very affordable in their management. A lot of platforms like Windows, Apple, whatnot, they cost us a lot of money to be able to maintain. This platform is really affordable and really easy to manage because they're so simple. And kind of like we said before, it's all of the internet. Anything you can do online, you can do on these Chromebooks now. I'm just going to show some kind of demo slides about Google Apps and Chromebooks. It's a platform built heavily on collaboration. So as you can see from the picture, multiple people, multiple students, multiple staff can be editing the same document, chatting while they're doing that. Everybody can share and collect data just like you can in a traditional Excel platform. Some internet research tools built right into the presentation software. So these programs I'm showing you are Word, Excel, PowerPoint. These are Google's versions of those. So they are very powerful, and that's what, I have a little video here from Google. It's kind of a sales video, so I didn't make it.
Don't you wish?
I'm getting dizzy.
So obviously that took a few very talented people a very long time to make. But the takeaway from watching that video is just that the platform is capable. We're not limited by having our students use Google Apps as opposed to Microsoft Office. This isn't a phrase we came up with, but we got to visit a couple of other places. We visited a few companies to see their technology. We also visited Milpitas Unified, and they came up with this phrase. They've adopted Google Apps and Chromebooks as their platform for education going forward. One to any. I'm sure you've heard the phrase one-to-one a lot, to give every student a computer to work with. But this idea is if you put your software in the web, I guess the cloud would be the word, your students can then do all their work and collaborate with other students, with their teachers from any device, whether it's their phone, their existing computers, their tablets. So that's the idea behind this one-to-any phrase that Milpitas coined. And it really is something we latched onto when they described it to us. Some specifics. The price for a Chromebook is roughly $300 per Chromebook. We want to procure these very soon for the upcoming Smarter Balance test, but then going forward for general use in the classrooms. We want to release the RFP tomorrow, have the bids due by next week, and for board approval at the next board meeting, and hopefully get them into the district by late March.
Thank you. Mr.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's all right. Mr. Sadler had a question, but do you want to wait until he's finished?
Yeah, well, how many are we talking about?
For our RFP, we're talking about 890 Chromebooks and 22 carts. That would equate to 40 Chromebooks a cart with 10 spares.
Thank you.
And the approximate cost?
It's hard for me to come up with what it's actually going to look like, because once we get the RFP, we should see better numbers. But we expect the price to be roughly around $300,000 for the entire project.
And this will serve all of our needs for the testing that we have to do?
This will take care of our testing for this year, certainly, and for coming forward. But it doesn't serve all of our technology needs more broadly. We do have a lot more things to address going forward: staff technology, teacher computers, and just on these Chromebooks. These are just a device to access the internet. The things we do on the Chromebooks are really critical for us to address going forward. We do have some solutions on that, Google Apps being one of them, but we're looking to more broadly expand the things students are doing on computers. These are sort of the gateway.
Mr. Metzinger?
I'll wait till it finishes.
Okay. Next steps would be to procure these Chromebooks and carts for the schools, to train staff on Google Apps and Chromebooks, and I'd like to reiterate that these Chromebooks are just portals to the internet. So really it's more Google Apps training. If you know how to use a web browser, you've used the internet, you should know how to use a Chromebook. Because once you log in, the only thing you have is, they're Chromebook apps, but really they're just websites. Deploy Google Apps to staff and students. Every staff and student will need an account, and we'll need to deploy those accounts district-wide. On the horizon, we're exploring Gmail as a potential replacement for our current email system. Currently, we're going to use Google Apps without Gmail, continue to use Outlook and Exchange, but it's something we are looking into. And questions?
Okay. Now, interesting approach to this. First of all, the roughly $300,000 or more, that comes from the grant that we got, or from the money we got? Well, I thought we got a bunch of money for implementing Common Core, and we said we wanted to spend a lot of money on technology. So.
No, actually, we said we wanted to.
Is your mic on?
Is it on? Okay, there it goes. The money that we got for Common Core was $1.3 million, and we decided to split that roughly 50% elementary and 50% secondary.
Yeah.
And we said we did not want to use that money for technology because it would just be a drop in the bucket. We wanted to spend that 50% on professional development and 50% on new materials, new instructional materials.
Okay, darn it. Given what I heard on CNN today, that maybe wasn't the wisest of decisions for us, but okay. Talking about, okay, so roughly, all right, so you got cost for the hardware. Is there any other cost for like the managed services part of it, or?
That $300 per unit includes a $30 license fee, a management fee to Google to be able to use their management console.
Annual fee?
No, it comes with it's a 3-year license, or 3-year.
Wow, $30 for 3 years?
It's a very competitive price, which is why I don't think, usually when you get RFPs, you can see 50, 60% off, what you think it's going to cost.
Yeah.
I think these Chromebooks are so close to margin that you won't see a lot of nudge from them on it.
Right.
Yeah, they're not making a lot of money off of it.
No, that's where they'll make the money, is on the managed services and stuff. So you said Google Apps. What about, and you mentioned some of the other, you mentioned Outlook, Microsoft Suite, things like that. They can support. I guess they'd be a service again through you log in through a certain number of seats or whatever to those. But are you planning on maintaining those as well?
Well, Google Apps itself, Google provides that for free to schools. So we get that. We can get Google Apps without Chromebooks, and you can use that on your existing computers.
Right.
Right. Microsoft Office will not run on Chromebooks. It's a program you'd have to install. So the alternative is for our students to use Google Apps, which has their own version of a document program, a presentation program, a spreadsheet program.
Yes, but Okay, so yeah, you couldn't install them on the Chromebooks, but you could have them installed on a server and you can log in that way, right?
What you're talking about, I think, is like terminal services, which
Yeah.
is a lot like the Sunrays were.
Right.
We're not planning on doing that with the
Oh, don't
Chromebooks.
say Sunrays, it's a bad.
Remote desktop services. That's what they call it now.
Yeah.
No, we're not planning on doing that with the Chromebooks. We're planning on leveraging native web applications primarily. And the big thing to that comes back to the one-to-any idea, where students should be able to access this work from home, from anywhere they are, and not be tied into going to the computers of the school or to get into their Microsoft Office environments.
Okay, just another quick question. We have, all the teachers had laptops and they're really, really in bad shape, many of them. We talked about refreshing them. So are we still going to go through this refresh plan, or is the notion to replace it with a Chromebook or?
Right now, we don't believe Chromebooks are a viable replacement for staff members. They have a lot of things they've worked on in Microsoft Office, in existing programs that they need to continue to use. So we believe that we'll have to do a replacement plan with more traditional compute laptops, you know, or desktops, whatever we just go with.
Yeah, we've got those lousy TVs in every room too that don't work anymore. So maybe it's possible to get, you know, even Chromecast with the Chromebooks and be able to.
Right.
use those
So
too.
the nice thing about the Chromebooks is everything you can do on the Chromebook, you can do inside of Google Chrome on your computer. So even if you don't have a Chromebook, you can still do all of those things on your regular computer or your regular laptop. So I believe that we'll continue with regular computers for staff members. We will have to come up with a replacement plan for them in the near future, because their machines, as you said, are very old at this point. They're 4 or 5 years old in a lot of cases.
Mr. Sadler?
Now, you said every single student has to have their own account in our whole district. Who is handling that?
We have it set up to automatically import. They're already created at this point. We just have to distribute them.
And there's no cost to every student having
No cost.
their own account?
Nope.
Wow. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Ms. Crocker?
Let's make sure. We're talking about 890 Chromebooks, and we're talking about not every student having one. We're talking about bringing them in for specific uses, for example, testing. So we're talking about them being moved around district-wide, or we're talking about each site having its own number?
So we are talking about 22 carts and every site getting an allocation of carts. So the kind of interesting thing we looked at with this sort of brand of cart we went with is we didn't want them to be limited to having to lug the whole cart into the room after they're done with. Obviously, we'll have to do that for testing because everybody needs to use the computer at once. But these carts will let them break up into smaller groups and have them in individual classrooms in groups of 5 or 10, whatever they decide to go with.
But when they're doing the testing, everyone's doing it at the same time.
Right. They will. Every school will have an allocation of carts for the testing.
So that's enough to take care of the testing needs per
Yes.
school?
Yes.
You know, I'm looking at the computers I have sitting in my house. We've gone through various things, and I'm thinking that we need to have, and I'm sure we do someplace, but there needs to be a plan. This is the beginning. You're saying this is the beginning that we need. What are we looking at the total needs that we have, technology-wise, in the next 3 years?
To me, that's a very hard question to answer because every 2 months technology changes.
I
You
know.
know, I will say I don't think this takes us to the bare minimum of where we need to be. I think we'll need more, and that depends a lot on the way the curriculum changes in the coming years and how much technology gets integrated into that. I know that's not the straight answer, as in, you know, we need 1,000 more and we're done, but it's a very kind of open-ended question. And
Well, I'm sort of comfortable with the fact, not really comfortable, but I accept the fact that there's going to be a change.
Yeah.
And I understand that it's very hard to project where technology is going. But what do you consider the life expectancy of these things?
I consider the life expectancy of these devices to be about 3 years. And really, that should be the life expectancy of even 3 to 5 years should be the life expectancy of even a traditional computer. So I think this method where we buy this 900 units we're buying now, and then maybe the next year you buy another allocation and you go forward doing it that way, instead of having everything go bad at the same time, like the problem we're facing with the teacher computers, you have them kind of phase out year over year.
But will they be able to talk to each other? I mean, if you don't do it all at one time.
Yeah. So that ties back to the thing that these Chromebooks are just portals to the internet. So all they do is get you to Google Apps is a website, right? So if you're using Google Apps, you're just going to google.com and accessing your documents and your spreadsheets and whatnot. So yes, the short answer is yes. They should be fine for the next 3 years at least, if not longer. The 3-year lifespan is more in terms of these websites will probably be requiring faster computers, more memory, whatnot, in the next 3 years.
You know, when you buy a textbook, it's around for 10 years, and everyone screams it's around for 10 years, but you can read it for 10 years, and you can use it for 10 years. I think we need to get a handle on what we're spending on technology, because there's a finite amount of money that we have. So we need to look at the whole picture as well as the piece. I mean, I've got a Slate, and I love it, because it's basically an internet thing and a Kindle. And I loved it, and I was traveling, I was able to access what I needed to do. And I appreciate the fact it's a reasonable price, and that it's small, and you can handle it, and it's pretty simple to run. And I appreciate that.
When I say 3 years, I don't mean they'll be unusable in 3 years. You'll continue to be able to do the things you've been doing on them, the same way people use computers for 5 and 6 years today. It's just they won't be at the modern edge of what you're doing, I guess would be the right
But we need this for the testing that's coming up this spring,
We do.
if we're going to do it. And we have to do it.
If we're going to give our students the best environment, we're going
So
to.
we don't have a choice.
More or less.
Ms. Crocker, can we move on?
Yes, certainly.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Larry. Excellent report. I just like it when you talk about Milpitas. We've always had this rivalry over the years with Milpitas High School.
Have we?
I see that we're following their lead as opposed to them following up. But no, I guess, friends, it's an excellent school district, and I'm glad you were able to go there and visit and pick that up. I guess this question is more for Elaine. The $300,000 or the price tag. Is there a special account for that, or is it coming out of general budget?
It has to come out of the general fund budget, and it will have to come out of reserves. It's not budgeted at this time, so it would have to come out of reserves.
Thank you. And then Larry, did you look at other ways to do this, or was this, you're pretty good at doing research, and then you said, technology seems to change every 2 months, and to me it seems like it's daily. And I think we're getting more and more emails, and I'm thinking of taking all my emails and put it all into the junk file, and then pick and choose which ones I want to take out of that particular folder. But, can you just explain a little bit about the process?
Right. So some of the other popular platforms available right now are regular Windows laptops are another popular one. Windows tablets and iPads are kind of the elephant in the room, right? Procurement cost is one of the biggest considerations for those. The Windows laptop will probably, the lowest entry point for that is $500 to $600. The iPad lowest entry point is about $500. These Chromebooks come with the management licenses for about $300. So for the same dollar, you get to buy a lot more. But more broadly than just price, we do think these are the best platform. Because they're so simple, they're just portals to the internet, and they're so simple to manage, I actually think that makes them more powerful in this context. More that, again, that one-to-any phrase, that you should be able to go home and do all of the same things you were doing on your Chromebook from your personal computer, from your phone even. And that's really by leveraging web platforms that don't tie you to the device, and that's what we're trying to accomplish with these Chromebooks.
So what's the timetable on this? Are you going to bring it up for the board to approve, or?
I can go back to that slide.
I'm just trying to understand.
The RFP, we would like to release tomorrow to get the bids in February 12th, and then at the next board meeting on February 18th, it would come for board approval and the adjustment to the budget at that time.
Thank you, Larry, again.
Mr. Mensinger?
That's a tight schedule because those things are coming in, you're gonna have to set them up and do all the various things that you need to do to get the security and everything else.
So that's one benefit to the Chromebooks again, is there's almost no setup for these things. You turn them on, you sort of join them to your Newark Unified Organization, and then they're pretty much ready to go. All the setup is managed by Google through that $30 license fee.
Okay, so what I was going to suggest is maybe you can send a link to, you know, the Google Apps. I've been doing Google Apps for a long time with Google Docs and a number of things, but you might want to send it to the board members so they can actually play with it at home, maybe even set up their own accounts and look at it so they can get a first-hand look at it. So if you wouldn't mind doing that. The only other thing that I want to suggest is whatever you budget for this, you know, if you don't budget for maintenance on it, then you won't want to come in front of the board again. So that's a polite way of saying make sure you budget for maintenance, because they did that. That's what they didn't do with the Suns, as you know, and they didn't do on some other things. So let's not make that mistake again. Okay.
Make sure you charge us for using the Chromebook.
Yeah. Ms. Crocker?
I want to underline what Mr. Menzer is saying. That is, I assume the 890 considers a certain percentage, so that if there's some that are out of commission, you have a backup.
Right, so that's, so that for testing, you know, our max classroom size is 32, 33. Each card has 40, so they have a built-in number of spares. And then we're also buying 10 spares on top of that, just for in case.
Mr. Sadler and then Ms. Thomas.
Tell me, what's the warranty on these things? What's the guarantee? There's going to be in the
1 year.
hands of a bunch of kids.
Well, it's just, warranty is for defects, not for damage. But
So if they get them the first day, they drop them and break them, we're out.
you're out of that Chromebook. But that is the same thing that's,
You're out of that.
I'm out of that Chromebook. But that we have cows in the district today. That's computers on wheels, and they've been pretty successful. We've had a few drops in breakage, but it's well under 5% over the life. You know, we looked at covers, and something we're going to put in as an optional line item on the RFP for them. But all the covers I looked at were at least $30. So at that point, you're spending 10% of the Chromebook on covers. And if you're not going to have 10% of breakage from drops, that would be fixed by covers. You're probably just better off buying 10% more Chromebooks.
Then, I bought a Chromebook 2 or 3 weeks ago for $270. It's just a wonderful little device. One of the things you didn't mention, I think that relates to what you're just talking about here with warranty and cost of repair and everything, is that they don't have a moving hard drive. All the memory is flash memory, and so therefore much less to break, and probably won't see the failure rates that we would on a regular computer. Is that right?
Right. They don't have moving parts like the traditional computers. No fans, no hard drive.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Next, Ms. Nielsen will be sharing with us the Governor's 2014-15 proposed budget. Thank you.
Is it going to last? Is that going to last past 8:30?
Ms. Nielsen, do you think you will be finished by 8:30? If not, we can move up the public comments on non-agenda items.
Why don't we move up the comments and then I'll get this set up.
Okay. So we have a member of the public that wishes to address us. That would be Ms. Parks.
We already started the timer like about a few minutes ago.
Ray. I'm gonna have to, I know, I'm gonna have to rush. I'm here this evening to address a few items that were mentioned in the March 18, 2009 report from the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistant Team, known as FITMAC. I'm going to highlight what I believe is selective or lack of enforcement of FitMAC's recommendations and how some of the recommendations led to the September of '09 amendments made to Administrative Regulation 1230, School-Connected Organizations, and the Board Policy 3290, Gifts, Grants, and Bequeaths. On page 51 of the report, it states booster clubs, foundations, scholarship funds, and parent-teacher organizations are not under the district's control. Organizations not under the district control are labeled school-connected organizations. These organizations have been formed for the purpose of supporting district and extracurricular programs and are separate legal entities, independent of the district. In the amended version of AR 1230, district employees are no longer allowed to serve as officers on any school-related organization. This was triggered by a comment and a recommendation in the FitMAC report. I am only aware of one school-connected organization that has been forced to adhere to this AR, and that is the Newark Memorial High School Booster Club. When the Booster Club became a school-connected organization in 2010, Rich Swift and Edna Jones were forced to step down as the treasurer and vice president of the club. I prepared a chart which lists all the school-connected organizations. Many of these organizations have district employees serving as officers. There's your chart. I wonder how many of these organizations have submitted the appropriate documents in compliance with the AR. Another component of AR 1230 is that the district paying of an employee. One school-connected organization, which shall remain nameless, runs a fireworks booth. After the district employee works in the fireworks booth, the organization does not issue a check to the district, let alone the school site. The checks are issued to the individual staff members who work in the booth. Before leaving my comments on the FitMAC report, I found one other finding that was very interesting. On page 56 of the report, it states scholarship bank accounts are managed at the school site without the benefit of an organized scholarship program or fund. Scholarship monies are received and deposited into separate bank accounts, and disbursement of scholarships are prepared and authorized by school site staff. This is atypical and inconsistent with industry standards. The appropriate vehicle for handling scholarship monies is a separate nonprofit scholarship fund with a board of directors and officers who are not school site or district employees. And on page 58, the FitMAC recommends establish a separate nonprofit scholarship fund at the high school with a board of directors and officers who are not school site or district employees. So, an AR is amended to impose restrictions upon one school-connected organization mentioned in a finding. However, a finding and recommendation about a completely site-staffed and run school-connected organization, school-connected organization isn't followed. Moving on, in BP 3290, gifts, grants, and bequeaths. The board policy continues with a statement, all gifts, grants, and bequeaths shall become school-directed property. All gifts shall be given to the school district and not to a particular school. At the superintendent or designee's discretion, a gift may be used at a particular school. However, AR 1230 labels money received from a school-connected organization as a donation. Therefore, it could be restricted to a specific, it could not be restricted to a specific program, except at the superintendent's discretion. Plus, based on the donations list that have been on the school board agenda, it seems most donations are program or site specific. In conclusion, I respectfully request Administrative Regulation 1230 be uniformly enforced upon all school-connected organizations and remove the restriction placed upon NUSD employees, as it is not practical, especially when applied to a parent-teacher organization. The language be changed in Board Policy 3290 to more appropriately reflect the donation practices of NUSD, and the practices of the Newark Community Scholarship Fund be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward? Seeing none. Ms. Nielsen.
Good evening. When Larry was presenting the technology advancements, and I'm getting close to retirement, I got to thinking a little bit. I started in finance in 1966. I'm telling my age. And we were doing reporting by computers that were in a room 3 times this size with a false flooring everything else. And my reports were submitted on punch cards. I'm thinking from 1966 to 2014, we have come a long way. I can remember how excited my son and my husband were to get a Commodore 64 in 1982. So just the sheer advancement that technology has given us and the ability to do so much more than what we could do back in the days when I was starting in finance. It's unbelievable. And in relation to that, to the governor's proposal, this is slides that were provided by School Services of California. We attended their workshop last month, and they are one of the most respected companies that have done finance for school districts over the last 35 years. So I very much value what they do. Okay, I always get the wrong one. I'm just going to highlight a few things. The governor's budget that Jerry Brown is proposing this year is the greatest increase in per student average funding since 2001, when we had a 10% increase in the budget. Also, it has been, they're trying to protect public education from eventual downturns by establishing 2 rainy day funds, one for education and one for the rest of the state budget. This has never been proposed before, to have 2 separate rainy day funds. And the governor is also proposing a continuous appropriation for the local control funding formula. What the budget does not address is there is not a proposal for school-wide facilities bonds. We are not eligible for any modernization money from the school finance or the school facilities bonds until 2017. And by then, maybe we might have matching funds. Maybe. It's still not determined. And there's no new funding to address the unfunded liability of the California State Teachers Retirement System. And there's no funding being addressed for the shortfalls in special education. The good news is that there is an increase in the K-14 budget for Prop 98 of 11.4%. I'm just kind of hitting the highlights here. You can see on the Prop 98 funding that it's been increased, or it's kind of been up and down for a few years related to the economy. The governor is proposing a one-time ongoing Prop 98 funding to eliminate the inter-year deferrals for 14-15. This is good news for cash flow only. It will not bring additional revenue, but it will even out our cash flow and make it easier for us to make payroll without borrowing from different funds. Also, if you notice that the statutory COLA is a 0.86%, which is lower than what they were estimating just 3 months ago when it was at a 1.87, I believe. This is the rainy day fund and an ongoing resource for it. Also, it does costs associated with the assessments for the implementation of Common Core. This is all at the state level. Oops. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. At full implementation, we will, in 2021, we are, of the local control funding formula, we are bringing our gap up. So right now, predicted for next year is a 28.05 jump up. And this combined with the 11.78 that we received this year, the LCF funding will be 1/3 of the way in 2 years. So if the economy holds, it's good news for us. So you can see that some more information there on this. But if you're looking at the factors, again, it's by grade level, and you can see where the 0.86 COLA is. This is at the state level on the Prop 98, and you can see what the funding will be. Just on the K3 alone, what I was projecting just 3 months ago was $120, where now it's $60. This is target full implementation. Again, you can see the figures that would be added on for K3 class size reduction and the career tech. And then you can see the figures that would be for a normal district where the 20% supplemental grant and the 50% supplemental grant. Taking that to, this is what the Newark Unified School District would look like, where our adjusted base grant per ADA would be at the different levels. Last week, on Thursday, when I put this together, our eligible students for the supplemental and concentration grants were 60.92. Thursday night, the state, in their wisdom, did an upgrade to CalPads, which is how we accumulate this information, and dropped us to 58.25. We lost 230 students, so we are busily trying to figure out what has happened to that, and we're back up to 59.1 as of 5 o'clock this afternoon. So we are trying to bring this back up to the 60.9, but I might not be reaching that. But that's just how fast things turn around and things adjust on the LCFF for us.
Where did those students go?
We're trying to figure it out. I mean, it's just the CalPads where we're relating the numbers is as of October 2nd. Well, we've certified 3 times since then, and our numbers have gone back and forth 1 or 2. But then overnight, without submitting any new information, the state changed it, and we lost 230 students. So we are busily putting that back in, and I have to commend Janet Temple for her diligence and her hard work, because otherwise we could have lost quite a bit of money. But that's how fast things change. So what I'm reporting today could change again tomorrow, you know. So ongoing, we have to develop the local control accountability plan, and management has been working very hard on trying to get the information put together. And Celeste and I have been working very closely on designing an accounting string that will accomplish the information that is needed in there. So I am in the middle of revising the accounting structure at this point. We have the May revision, and we have the adoption of the final spending requirements in the templates. We've got draft regulations draft emergency regulations in right now, and we're waiting for the final ones. And of course, we have to adopt the budget in June, and the state budget has to be adopted hopefully by June 30th. So, any questions?
I have a question. What happened to the COLA going down so dramatically? And
The statutory COLA is based on about 3 different factors that the state uses. One is the interest rate change over the last 10 years. One is a consumer rate number. So it varies, but I've never seen it vary this much from 3 months ago to today. I can't explain it, but it's the numbers that we have to do from the state.
Okay, Mr. Rodriguez?
Hey, excellent presentation. You get music afterwards, huh?
I know.
Thank you, Mrs. Nielsen, for a great presentation. I had the opportunity to go up, and it's the first time I had been up there in probably 6 years or so, and just the whole atmosphere being positive and everything. And we didn't know what to expect of Jerry when he came back, after being gone for, what, 30 years or so?
Something like that, yes.
So, but it's great. I think he's doing an excellent job.
He's keeping his promise to put education first.
And I know, that's exciting. I wanted to ask you a question on the supplemental grant, because we were at 60%. Now, is that considered restricted monies to be used on those, on the kids that are actually getting us to that percentage, or the students?
From the latest bullet that I printed out about 5:30 this afternoon, it is, according to the state, unrestricted money. But that does not mean that we're not going to have to account for that money.
Right, so there is an accountability in there.
There is an accountability, and I will be setting up a separate resource that would account for that money and how we're spending it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nielsen. So next we move on to the consent agenda, since we already covered public comments on non-agenda items. Do I have a motion on consent agenda item A?
So moved.
Moved by Member Crocker,
Second.
second by Member Mensinger. Please vote.
Oh, sorry.
5 ayes. Next, we move on to non-personnel items. Is there anyone that would like to pull any of these non-personnel consent items?
I'd like to pull B2, minutes for November 19th.
So do I have a motion for B1?
Motion to approve B1, B3, B4, and B5.
I'll second.
Please vote. B2?
B2, I was not attending the meeting, so I have to abstain.
Do I have a motion for B2?
So move.
Second.
Please vote. Five ayes with 1 abstention by Ms. Crocker.
Thank you.
New business. We move on to, or does anyone want to make any comments on the consent agenda? Okay, then we move on to new business. And this first item, item A.
Or employee organization.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have someone from NTA? Well, this is good. It's been a while. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's been a while. I thought you were going to skip. That's okay. Good evening, Board and Executive Cabinet and Management. As both NTA Co-President and Bargaining Chair, I would first like to thank and appreciate and acknowledge the NUSD bargaining team on reaching a tentative agreement with the Newark Teachers Association. So happy, happy day. And we are moving forward for ratifying this agreement, so we're happy about that. We've got a lot of other things on our plate, and we've got a lot of work to do in other areas, so we'll move forward. Oh, and I wanted to make a couple of comments, too, about, listening to all the comments and things that are going on at the board meeting. One of the highlights that I personally have is when the schools do their report. One of the things I enjoy is having the students come up here and share. That's what it's all about, is, the education of the students, and having them come up and show their leadership and talk about what they're doing. To me, that's what it's all about. So I just want to share that. We have many changes, in the works and ongoing. We have local control funding formula. We have Smarter Balance, Common Core, to name a few. Newark Teachers Association looks forward to working with Newark Unified School District on incorporating these changes and adjusting to these changes and hopefully making things go smoothly. It's a big task. It's a big undertaking. And I think we understand that. You understand that. I don't remember in my 24 years of having so many big things coming down. And we're not coming up with these changes. They're being told to us, this is what you're going to have to do, and we have to respond. And it's hard to be in that response mode, where you're being told and you have to quickly adapt. And we hear that from Elaine, where we don't know from one day to the next what the budget's going to be and what our numbers are going to be. Every day is a new thing. It's a new game. One of the items that we're still discussing and we're talking to in terms of negotiations has to do with teacher evaluation. And Newark has embarked on a journey, a task, part of a pilot program with California Department of Ed. I'm part of the team, and it's a big task that we're undertaking. It has to do with looking at new and appropriate evaluation techniques for our teachers. And the one thing that I want to say about this, just kind of on the onset, is that looking at evaluation is more of a process rather than an event. That, we want to look at improvement and working with our folks to make them better teachers. And then, kind of to end this, a lot of people watch the Super Bowl. I think it broke a record for the amount of people watching. I think it was over 111 million people or something ridiculous like that. But kind of make an analogy between the Super Bowl and assessments. You're wondering, where am I going with this? Well, if you look at the two teams, and if we were to say, all right, we're going to assess these teams based on this one game, the Seattle Seahawks would get a far and above. The Denver Broncos would be far below basic. They would come out looking pretty bad based on that one game. However, if you looked at the season as a whole, and you looked at their games and how Peyton Manning played, you would say, they're not that bad. But, making the analogy to the assessment process, and it's not just teachers, and I'm talking about students too. If we base the students, their accomplishments on one single little test that they take out of one day of the year, it's not doing justice to their capabilities and actually who they are. So not only do we look at teachers and their evaluation as a process, but also, keep in mind that our students, they may come in and take this test, and we got a whole new process now with online assessments, and we're trying to figure out whether we're going to buy Chromebooks or not. But we need to look at the student as a whole and not just look at it as just this one event. And I said that was going to be the last thing, but I was listening to the presentations, and they talked about McGregor, their new library, and I could attest that the library is very nice. So you got to go check it out. It is neat. We were just there yesterday, and it's a really nice library. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Condon from CSEA.
Good evening, President Thomas, board members, almost said Dr. Markin, Tim and staff. I'm up here tonight to say something a little difficult to hear. And although Dr. Markin's not here, I'm hoping he hears the message, and hopefully we can all respond in some way or another. So tonight I'm here to talk to you about respect and perception. Behind you here, we have some hardworking members from the MOT department, for maintenance, operation, and transportation. We have maintenance, grounds, custodians, transportation. These people keep your district running. We clean toilets, dump garbage, mow the lawns, fix leaks, beautify and build, fix the schools and the classrooms, and drive buses for the kids. Yet, according to administration at the district, they are the reason that schools are in such poor shape, and they are the reason we are experiencing declining enrollment. Yes, we've heard many phrases. We're worthless, we're lazy, it's our fault. It can't be my fault, it's gotta be yours. Problem here is when it comes from administration, people perceive it to be true. Unfortunately, perception isn't always fact. If you believe these hardworking people are not working hard enough, I say shame on you all. Perception. You complain that nothing is getting done. What about the fact that we have reduced the number of valid open work orders from 1,500 down below 500, closer to 4? This makes that statement false. Our success should be celebrated. Instead, it is unmentioned. Again, shame. Perception. You complain that we socialize and are inefficient because you see our guys doubling up in trucks to get to their jobs. Fact, there are not enough vehicles in the maintenance department to take them to their jobs. Instead of buying vehicles, it is easier to blame us that we're inefficient. You complain that we don't keep our appointments or schedules, that our communication is poor. But communication works both ways. Let me give you an example of just one project we worked on that we had complaints for that wasn't getting done. We set that program up with an outside vendor and two of our employees to come in and repair bells at the high school on a staff development day. Excuse me. While those people were working at the site, they were told to leave. They were disturbing a meeting. The reason we were there that day was because there were no kids, and we needed to do that job on those kind of days, but we're sent away. Do people know we're sent away? No, they just say we don't do the job. Many people call. I answer those phones every day, asking for help, and they want you to come right now. There are only 6 people that I can send out to help, and they can't be in all places at once. And if they are working on a project and I send them somewhere else, how do you expect them to finish the first job? But it's our fault. You say that our team won't go the extra mile, yet just a couple days ago, actually, they rallied together to the high school to sanitize because of the flu problems we're having. Now, many of them had their own plans, but they knew it was for the health and safety of the school and the children. Now, instead of celebrating our teamwork and accomplishment, it goes unmentioned. Now, for the first time, I'm going to say as the CSEA president, that you need to also support our management. There used to be more supervisors in that department, and they currently oversee 50+ employees from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night. Nights, weekends, and holidays. Now, I don't always agree with every decision they make, but I do know that now, not only are they trying to handle the workload, they are starting to begin and truly care about our members. I wish that the same could be said for the administration. Fact is that MOT has not received funding to replace some of the specialized classified employees that have retired or left the district. One main example, a plumber. Fact is that we have 38 custodians, 6 maintenance workers, 5 ground workers, 1 mechanic, 1 bus driver, 2 secretaries, and 2 supervisors to cover 14 sites in this district. I receive those phone calls. A lot of complaints, a lot of emergencies. People tend to think if they threaten with safety, OSHA, or contacting administration, that we will make sure we get there. It's not fair for CSA members to not be recognized or appreciated for what they've done. We need more workers, we need more equipment, we need vehicles, and we need your support. Board members Stadler and Mensinger have publicly asked the MOT what they need for success. We're still waiting for that list to be funded. Now I know I've mainly addressed the MOT department, but I also want to tell you at this time there are other classified employees standing here and they also feel disrespected. Our paras, our secretaries, our food service, these people come into work every day and give you more than 100% of work to get their jobs done. And why? Because they do it for the kids and they have pride in their schools and what they do. Do you remember when we had the budget cuts? Well, you cut their hours, you cut our people because of the economic reasons, and we get that, we understood that. But the workload didn't go away. These are people still doing their jobs. They deserve respect. All we ask is for the respect. Stop blaming, start supporting. Stop perceiving that we are worthless, and realize you can't do it without the classified members. Respect is what these people deserve. So I place it in your hands. I know that not everybody feels that way. We do get compliments. So I place it in your hand and I hope that something can be done so these people really realize that you do respect them and give them the dues they need. Because I've said it before, together we work together, we will succeed. Together, we'll make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Newman's anybody but.
I don't believe there's anyone from NUMA. Is that correct?
New business, eh?
Okay, next we move on to new business A. This item was put on the agenda at the request of Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Thomas. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the exhibit and I want to compliment Dr. Markin and staff for putting that together. Basically what we have is we have a lot of inconsistencies when you go to the different sites. Some sites have signs, others have none, like the junior high school. I'm fine with the signs that the individual sites put up. Do not make a, right only, do not make a left, enter, exit, no parking at certain times, and the sites are pretty good at developing their own signs. What I like to do is I like to ask the board, so I'd like to make a motion to eliminate the signs other than at the high school that are not school signs. This is causing a lot of grief at different sites where parents are being pulled over and inside the parking lot. And in spite of the principals asking the local police department to, and which is, we want the police department involved in our schools. And so when the principal calls the a police officer because of a disturbance. You know, that's always been something, the partnership there has always been great. You know, there's a police officer assigned to just about every one of our schools, and they patrol the area to make sure that everything is safe. But we've had some, you know, disturbing situations at a couple of our sites where parents have been pulled over in the parking lot. The officer was asked to ask them to exit so they can take care of their business outside. It was refused. Kids were, in a couple of situations, the students were, had to stay in the vehicle until the officer finished, give them the ticket, and where the principal wanted them to exit the vehicle so they can, you know, go into the classroom. So it's been, and I know that, you know, Commander Carroll and a couple of the officers involved met with the superintendent. So my suggestion on the signage, and this is something that's been going on for a long time, and when Newark Junior High School redid their parking lot, they decided not to have those signs, and everything's running very well over there. So, so again, what I like to do is have the board consider getting rid of all the signs other than school signs. I think Ms. Parks went to, and I'm okay with just stopping if she wants to address the board on this issue.
What's the, well, wait a minute. Let's first talk about the process we have. The process we have is to ask for comments before we begin deliberating.
I don't think we did that in this case.
I guess we haven't started deliberating.
Right. So I'm okay with taking it back to asking for comments before we talk more on it, if the rest of the board's okay with that.
Okay, but what we got to make sure we're not doing is allowing the public to come and respond to something that we are already talking about. But in this case, Ms. Parks, come and forget that Mr. Rodriguez said anything, please.
Well, that's a little bit hard to do. To be honest with you, based on what was on the agenda, I took this to mean that you were reviewing the signs that were on the sites and whether they were current based on what was happening. I know that I had addressed this board at least 5 years ago regarding the signage at the high school because there is no limitation on the hours for enforcement for the parking pass. So if you had an event that's going on at the weekend, of course nobody or most people would not have a parking pass on the weekend, and based on your signage, the police department could have come on site and cited anyone who did not have a parking pass, and I brought that to your attention a number of years ago. So my understanding of what the reason that this item was on the agenda was to discuss updating the signage, and if you look at those pictures, I think that they paint a picture of very dilapidated signs that are in need of being replaced. That is my understanding of what this was on the agenda for, not to go along the path that Mr. Rodriguez was going down. And I think that you're going down a path that you don't have enough knowledge as far as what you can and can't restrict. By removing signage where most of those signs depict somebody being able to park, and just as when Commander Carroll was here a couple of months ago, several weeks ago, he brought the fact to your attention of the vehicle code was still going to be enforced. Even though you were going to remove the signage that, and requested that the police department no longer enforce your parking passes, he was very specific on the fact that the vehicle code was still going to be enforced. So your signage removal
you can do that for your parking passes, but you can't stop the police department from enforcing the laws of the state of California.
Thank you, Ms. Parks. Okay, we have Mr. Stadler, but are you finished with your?
All right, what I did want to go over is, you've got in this exhibit certain signs here that are going to have to stay up. One is caution low clearance. These are under our overhangs because trucks will take them out, take those overhangs out. These no parking fire lane signs have to stay up. You know, I get the ones with the parking permit and that, but there's certain signs and certain enforcement that, I mean, the fire lane signs, we can't remove those. So anyway, that's
Ms. Crocker?
I think it's really very important to identify people that break the law about parking in fire lanes should be ticketed, because there's a reason for that. And I don't think that because someone got ticketed and they were parking there because they had to drop their child off, that's reason to say to them, well, you shouldn't be ticketed because you're on our property. So I agree with Member Stadler, the fact that there are certain things there. I would like to see the staff come up with a suggested kind of signage that we need to have. Point well taken in terms of timing. There is no, it's not stating during school hours. We've asked for the police department not to enforce
our permits,
the parking things for the rest of the year. Right. So we've got time to get that together. We need to have dates. I noticed some of the signs had no number to call, and so that's not there. So I think that we need to look at it. My other pet peeve, if we're talking about this, and that is that every school site should have a visitor section that is close to where the office is. I mean, it's ridiculous that I think it's important sometimes for the staff to have closed spots, but not all the staff. I think the most important, the visitors coming in, dropping off a child, leaving, there needs to be a place for that to happen. And in many of the school sites, that's not true. And I know that going around to visit various schools, I find myself not able to find a visitor's parking place. So I think that we need to look at it and revisit it. I don't know that removing the signs at this point is the answer. Certainly not the safety things.
Okay, Mr. Mensinger.
Well, I think Ms. Parks made an important point. I don't think we have the expertise to be giving direction on this. I think maybe what we need to do, or the direction that we need to do, is to direct staff to work together with Newark Police Department to update all of our signage, get consistent signage across the board, or what's relevant, and they can help us with that. Then, as Ms. Crocker said, there has to be guest parking at all the schools where people can come in. They don't need a pass. They don't need a temporary pass or anything. They park in the guest parking and they can go in, do their business in, and get out of there. And that's not employee parking, and that would be up to the site administration to enforce those things. But I think what we really need to do is, this is a big mess, okay? And it's a big mess because it's been there's been a lot of things happening over the years, and I think it's time to get our arms around this, get a good new process in place, update everything, update the rules, and then start over fresh at the beginning of the year and make sure that everybody understands the rules and everyone understands what's going on, and then we can actually have enforcement in a logical approach that isn't causing a friction between school sites and our police department.
Mr. Rodriguez, excuse me.
No, just to piggyback on Ms. Parks and her comments, which is very true. Whether even if there's no signs, like for instance at junior high school, if there's someone parked in a red zone or whatever, then everybody knows that the police department, whether there's a sign or not, can come on the property and, you know, just like Commander Carroll talked about the mall, you know, they can come on the property and ticket someone. And the fact that we have suspended, or we've asked the police department to suspend giving tickets through the end of the year, to me means that, one, we're working together on the issue, and two, I think a lot of people agree that, there's been some problems in enforcing and using common sense. And I know it's isolated because, I mean, all you got to do is go to the high school and to different events and see the police officers there and the wonderful job that they do. But, there's been a few officers that have, in my opinion, not acted in the best interest of our children. And when asked to, to assist. And then we have officers that volunteer on their off time at some of our sites and lending a hand and stuff, and along with the, the fire department, So we have excellent, relationship with the fire department and the police department. But if you look at the exhibits, you see that our signs, and it's been mentioned that we do have time to work on this, and we need to, clean this up and see what staff does come up with as far as a suggestion. But
thank you.
But take a ride by the junior high school and see how wonderful that looks, and you'll see that the signage is not something that we need to have, and the school kind of it should be something that's being directed by the school site people on what they want there and what they don't want. So,
Mr. Stadler?
Yeah, Mr. Crocker, you were commenting on the visitors parking. And if you remember a few months ago, the high school, we were talking about the visitors parking not being at all adequate. And staff was going to come back to us that they were going to look like the front of those staff parking and make those visitors, and we have never gotten a report back on at all.
At the elementary school sites, there's really, when you have visitors, normally they park in the red zone, which is something they shouldn't do. Because
it's a good point, but what I was getting at is we had never heard back from staff, Kim.
Mr. Irwin?
On any of those parking, and at the time, I think the principal said, yeah, we're going to make all those visitor parking, and I agree with you. I mean, the visitor parking at the elementaries is atrocious. It's non-existent.
Right, right there.
So
Some schools are fine. It's a real difference. There's different schools
right.
have different events, and so I think
like Kennedy has a whole.
We're looking for some consistency. We're looking for the staff.
And I agree with that. But
so, are we asking in this particular vote?
Mr. Irwin had his.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Irwin had his number. I mean his seat.
Thank you. I would just ask that you let staff take a look at this and then come back with something. We certainly know that this has been a rough year. I think there was a very productive meeting that was held with Commander Carroll. I'm back in Milner. He's not here. And the sergeant of the traffic and the actual traffic officers with our principals. I think that was a very productive meeting. We learned a lot. I think they learned a lot. So let staff take a look at this and then come back to make sure that we have fair and consistent and, more importantly, enforceable signage.
How much time does staff need? Can we put this on an agenda?
Visitor parking.
Can we plan on this at a certain time?
Yeah, we'll meet with our law enforcement partnership. I'm not sure when that next meeting is. We'll bring that up as a topic, and then maybe the first meeting in March we can bring something back.
First meeting in March, okay.
sounds good.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Rodriguez, since you brought that forward?
We can get this wrapped up by May,
I agree. That sounds like a good idea. Okay, thank you. So next can we move item C up? We have visitors from.
Yes.
Okay, new business item
We
C.
didn't do it during we approved our agenda. We didn't do it then.
Well, sometimes we have been able to we did that last meeting in deference to people who are visiting from out of the area. Okay, so we move on to item C, approval of lease-back delivery method, and That would be Ms. Nielsen.
Tonight, we are bringing the recommendation forward to approve the leaseback delivery method for the HVAC and roofing projects. And with us tonight, we have Jenny Rios and Robert Flory from Vanner and Arnie Sandberg from Lozano Smith here to answer any of your questions.
Okay. We had a presentation last week, and we did get some information from staff based on questions that were asked of staff. So let's start with Mr. Stadler.
Okay, I have a couple questions. One, pardon?
Sure. Yeah.
You're pointing to?
Please, yeah, please. You can take turns answering the question, or the most appropriate person can answer it.
Okay. One is, this is like selling this project. Can we give any direction, like on the fly, or are we completely, not us, but the manager, when we sell this contract or lease this contract to them, does that put us out of, if we find whatever, dry rot or whatever, we can't give any recommendations, right? For what's going to happen, how to proceed.
So, this contracting method doesn't change how we actually solve problems out in the field. So it will still be done by the architectural record.
Okay, so.
Create the solution, and then the contractor actually puts the price together based on that.
Okay. Okay, so we also, Vanner is the manager of this project. So now we're leasing this out. Are you still the manager? Or is now?
No, we're still the manager. This is strictly just the contracting methodology of procurement for the general contractor, the person doing the work. So we haven't changed that delivery at all. It'll still be done by an outside contractor, a third-party contractor. We are just managing it on your behalf.
And, okay, so if we find dry rot, we have to go in, whatever, then Vanner can go in and say, hey, we need to do it this way, and we still have the control. Yes. Correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mensinger.
Okay, so I had a number of questions on this. I'm really confused because I thought this was a great idea, and in the beginning, when we went through all this, you guys talked us out of it and said it wasn't a good idea, that we wouldn't be doing this. So this is why I've been confused that we're even bringing this forward. So when I read the ed code, the ed code is pretty explicit when it says building or buildings. And it says real property, which in my, granted I'm not a lawyer, but in my 4 law classes that I've had, that meant dirt and land. And so and when I look up online, they're all talking about buildings and construction of buildings and not repairs. So I'm wondering how, and we talked about this before when you guys originally pitched this, we wouldn't do this because we're only doing repairs, not buildings. So I'm wondering why the change of heart and the change of definition.
I'll tackle that one. Arnie Sandberg from Lozano Smith.
And thanks for your email too, that was very helpful.
Oh, you're welcome. To follow up on that, that's an excellent question because when you just read the statute, it does sound like it's just buildings. But the ed code, if you've ever seen a copy of it, is incredibly thick with thousands of statutes, and one of those other statutes defines the word buildings quite broadly. In fact, it specifically says that it includes remodeling of buildings and a few other things. So,
yeah, I read those, but those weren't in relation to the leaseback. Those were in relation to something else.
Well,
it was like 1,700 or something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, it's actually
Those are just general definitions which apply to them all.
Right, it's a statute that was maybe 3 or 4 in front of the leaseback statute, and the statute number is Ed Code Section 17400. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I read, and I didn't glean anything from that. So Lozano Smith is telling us, giving us legal advice now that this is okay. There is no legal issues with doing this. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions I had were in regard to things like taxes and costs and stuff like that. And, you know, I don't understand where, you know, I've looked at some of the other districts and they say there's additional costs and there's additional money in taxes. Now, I know we don't pay taxes because we're a government entity. But we've depreciated buildings and we've depreciated everything, and I don't understand then, well, let me ask you a question. Is there any additional costs, any unforeseen costs, or anything that we're not talking about here that could come up? I haven't seen any cost-benefit analysis for this. It's just that everybody now thinks it's a great idea when before we didn't. That's why I'm so confused.
Sounds like a two-part question. One is related to tax.
There's probably a multi-part rambling question, yeah.
Yeah, but the first question, which is easy, is related to taxes, right? Is there any tax implications? And the answer is no. The second, in my mind, the more difficult question is what are the unforeseen? Does the lease-back delivery offer any advantage or disadvantage with respect to cost? Is that the question?
Well, I haven't seen a cost analysis, so I don't know if it's going to cost us more to go in this route and the benefit is schedule and ease of vendor selection, or I'm not sure.
I'll try to address the cost aspect of it. Each methodology, each type of project you bid, each variable you have can actually vary the costs up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And since we're not doing the identical project, hard bid, with all the change orders in product and lease-back side by side, you really don't know the exact differential. Typically, competition plays into a fact. The more competition you have, the prices can come down, but also means it can drive the cost so low that you now have change orders on the backside as contractors who are trying to recover their costs because they were trying to be the lowest bidder at that point in time. What we're trying to do here is we still have cost as a competition in there, but it's done in more of a negotiation mode. So they are competing against other contractors when they're doing the pricing. And then we get to work out the things of the relationships or their interfaces between the roofing and how it was handled with the tear out of the HVAC, or did they include the gas piping all the way to where they had to go, or the control wiring and stuff like that. Unlike a hard bid where you can't discuss that at all, we get to actually talk about that.
Why can't you discuss that? Why can't you put that in your RFP?
You put it actually in documents, but a person who's actually done this many times, I can say in the documents, you'll do your control wiring by X, and the trades will either miss it or not miss it, and it's a change order. You can have them sometimes dual, and it's really weird in the situations where some trades in the overlap, because this isn't a straight full building be done, you got everything covered, and you have a contractor putting their arm around it, you have bits and pieces of several parts of projects that we are combining together because of the relationship to each other, because the main thing is roofing and the main thing is HVAC units, and then the association parts that go with it.
I'm not following you, because this is standard program management, and why wouldn't you be managing that no matter what the contractual
You are, but I can tell you that if you do it as a hard bid and a sealed, it is all about the amount of mistakes that they are left on their bids, which means they're going to look for holes in every one of your drawings, and your drawings are the Bible at that point in time. There is no give or take to that. They're either in or they're not in. And we're all human. We all don't do perfect sets of drawings. I can just tell you.
Why isn't that the case in lease-back?
Because you actually get to talk about that after the fact. So you'll actually bring the, say, okay, this shows that you should have wiring here, and the contractor might say, yeah, but on this page over here it tells me I don't need it. And you say, yes, but we need it, so put it back in your number. The 3 other bidders had it in their number. I want you to add it back.
Then why didn't you guys suggest this to begin with? Why did we go down this road?
If my understanding of the presentation you're referring to has happened before any of us was actually selected and and actually determining the scope of work. It was done a couple years ago.
Well, but no, Vanner also pitched to us and said that these would be the methods of doing this. We even talked about lease back, and it was kind of tossed aside that we wouldn't do this. Believe me, I like this.
The idea was, and Jenny and I have talked about it as each year, is looking at the project specifically, and they might change from year to year to year, the methodology we're proposing. Last summer, made it perfect sense. The project was smaller, it was confined, it made a lot of sense. This time, there is just so many complex interaction, and the summer window is tight, and we're occupying doing something on all the site. So with that, you look at all those areas, and there's no room for error. The best way is to be able to make sure the person's qualified, which you can't really do on the other process. This does it in a lot cleaner way.
How can you not? You can put qualifications in an RFP, and if they don't meet the qualifications, then you don't select them.
I can tell you that there's actually contractors that have been removed from school districts that still bid school districts. And the whole reason why is the threshold that you're willing to go to court over fighting them to get them out of there is way too low. So with that, they qualify.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Rodriguez?
The issue of competition, and that was one of the issues that I had, but after the presentation and what you just said, so there is a lot of competition, even though you have a different way of doing your selection process. Now, the cost issue, and it's my understanding that if this particular method is going to, reduce your change orders, which is something that we've had an issue here, when we've selected, contractors in the past, and so is that still the case? So wouldn't that save us money if the change orders are going to be reduced a whole bunch with this particular method?
The idea is, yes, that this methodology has the better chance of reducing. It will not eliminate them. As you'd mentioned, dry rot and stuff like that. There are still things that when we take off those units, you might find things that you say, oops, and we try to take precautions into mitigating that or predetermining some unit costs or stuff like that. But the idea of the scope gaps, the errors in the drawings, that's the stuff that we can mitigate with that.
Now, the last thing I had was the time issue. Would this help with the time, getting on a project sooner? And because that's a big issue for us, is getting these projects started and then finished. Hopefully, all of them within in the summertime, but or when there's no school, so is that going to help in that particular area?
The leaseback would allow us to start working with a contractor sooner. Yes.
And then how do you eliminate the perception that people might have that because you're negotiating and everything, there's a favoritism in there where you're leaning towards somebody instead of being fair to everybody that's in the conversation?
Okay, well, I do know that we still prepare a matrix of what we use as our criteria, and it's still done with a group. It's not by ourselves. So favoritism of us just by ourselves doesn't count.
Right.
And the price is still an element, and then the qualifications are an element, the ability to deliver, the right staff. Those are all variables that we would put into a matrix to help the group determine which one they want to select.
No, because, we like Lozano Smith, and but not to the point where they're going to be involved in somebody filing a grievance or something because they felt that they weren't treated properly. And you look a lot better, by the way, than Lou, Don't tell him I said that, but anyway, so how do you deal with Mr. Lozano Smith? How do you deal with that issue, the perception that we might get some contractors that file a grievance because they felt that they weren't treated, equally in the whole process?
It's very rare in my experience, and I think our firm's experience, that a contractor who participates in a request for proposal process files a grievance or a claim that they were unfairly treated. Even though it's not competitive bidding, it's still a rather thorough and comprehensive process. The RFP asks for a lot of detailed information that the construction managers, along with the district, will evaluate and make the best decision to find the best contractor to deliver the best product at the best price. And it's a balancing act. You're not strictly going by the price, you're looking at the quality of the contractor and other factors too. So it depends on how many contractors submit proposals, but assuming you have a fair number of them, you're going to have at least a couple of good proposals. That's typically what happens. And then if one of those contractors is picked, and Robert and Jenny can correct me if I'm wrong, if one of those contractors is picked, it's hard for one of the other contractors to argue that an incompetent or otherwise improper contractor was selected.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stadler?
Now, if someone does file a grievance, now that postpones for 120 days, correct? Am I right or wrong?
I think the validation, I think the 120 days that you're talking about is a validation action that could be filed by the district or by a contractor if they wanted to challenge it.
The process isn't valid. That's what are you talking about if someone claims the process was invalid?
Right.
Yeah, that's the process, the use of lease-back.
120 days, correct? No.
Yeah, there would be a delay of that. However, validation actions, whether filed by the owner or a contractor, are very rare. Okay. And that's probably not something to worry about. It's a very common process now, much more common than it was just 2 or 3 years ago. So.
Thank you.
I still have more.
Thank you. Mr. Mansinger?
Yeah, still trying to get my arms around this process. Okay, so from a legal perspective, we are leasing the building to somebody. And then we still get the use of the building, but they effectively have, I don't know, they assume the ownership for that, for whatever period of time that is?
They become a lessee during the course of the project. And then there is a site lease where rights go back to the district so that the district also has the rights to enter the project and use the sites for other purposes, as long as they're not interfering with the contractor, of course.
Okay, so if they run late on their program, if they have cost or schedule overruns, and they move into the August timeframe or September timeframe when we have kids, smiling faces, showing up for school, and they are the lessee, not us, can they keep our kids from coming on campus?
Well, if there are any delays, they will still be subject to liquidated damages, just as a construction contract under competitive bidding. They do have a time schedule. They will have to get the work completed by a certain date, and if they don't, if completion extends beyond the completion deadline, they will be liable, the contractor will be liable for liquidated damages. In a situation like this, where Jenny and Robert probably know more about the actual impact on the sites, but generally speaking, when you have a summer project and there's a risk of the delay causing or interfering with the commencement of classes sometime in August, that justifies a higher rate of liquidated damages than normal, because if there's interference with the beginning of classes, that is a huge problem.
Well,
and so
we're assuming those are liquidated damages are part of the remedies in the contract. Right?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So assuming that we do have a favorable contract, I mean, what that means is they'll pay us for the damages, but that we still have an issue with kids in schools, and we have no control over the building because effectively they have. So, and even with the liquidated damages, let's say they run into some unforeseen problem. Now there's a dispute over whether this work itself caused the delay or not. And so now we have, yeah, you see where I'm going with this.
Absolutely, and I'm a construction litigator. Hopefully you won't be seeing me again. That's mostly what I do. So let me tell you that delay claims and lawsuits are not fun. But the mantra, whenever I get involved in a project that is being delayed, the project isn't even done yet, but I often get involved. My advice to the client, and I'm sure Robert and Jenny would agree, is that the mantra is get the job done as soon as possible. Minimize the impacts, minimize the damages, get the job done. And that's where the construction management team comes in with contingency plans from the outset, but also monitoring the progress of the project and knowing how to handle it once, if, God forbid, there is a delay the week before classes start, there will be a plan to handle it.
I'll give you an example, one that happened I think that might help you. A school district next door, the Hayward Unified School District, we actually did some modernization wings, lease-back. And in that, we did run into a lot of dry rot. We ran into it up on the roofs, and we ran into the walls. So we actually, our effort was to actually get the insides of the classrooms done, protected, so that they had an egress in and out. And then we would work roofs later when they weren't there, on weekends, the walls outside, when they weren't there after hours, but we still gave them access. So the idea is your focus is still to get the kids and the teachers back into the classrooms. In this case, we're all working on the outside, except, right?
Okay, but this was a lease-back case?
Yes, they were.
Okay, so then you guys are going to be, how can you guys manage the project if you work for us and we've leased to someone else who now who's the leasee of the building? They have their own program managers, they have their own management system. How are you guys oversight over them when you work for us and not for them?
They still are working for you in the sense that the contract is with you and we're your representative. So that's how it's set up. So they don't have a different program management. They might have their own management tools that they might use, and that's just how they actually do business and keep control of it all over. But they're still working for the district, and they have an obligation to the district, and we're that representation for you.
So as far as you're concerned, there's absolutely no difference. This makes no difference to you. The contractual means of bringing these people in means absolutely nothing to your day's work.
No, other than we get to actually work out a lot of things during the bid process that we didn't get to before.
Okay, Ms. Crocker?
I want to sort of piggyback on what Mr. Menzinger just said, and that is, what are the differences between the LOB and the DBB, aside from the fact that how you get the contract? Is there anything in terms of the management of the contract, in terms of what happens when things are late? Is there anything that would be, that one would be more superior than the other in terms of the actual work site stuff?
That goes a lot, speaking from a legal point of view, in the legal contracts, you have the agreement, the general conditions, supplemental conditions, the specifications, and so on. Those documents are very, very similar, if not identical, when you're comparing DBB and lease-leaseback. So the rights of the district to partially occupy or use the project, or use the site during the course of the project remain the same, and the liquidated damages remains the same. A lot of the things you've been talking about remain the same. The differences come into play in just how you're selecting the contractor. Once you've got the contractor and you enter that contract, it's going to be very, very similar, if not identical.
Mr. Menzinger.
Mr. Sandberg, another question for you. And this is the question that I had way back when, okay? So I'm just digging it out of the archives. Why would we enter any other kind of procurement process or contractual obligation other than lease-back? And don't say size of the program, because it wouldn't matter, because all the benefits are the benefits. That's just the percentage of the impact. So why would we do anything other than this?
You have two different delivery methods in the state that are available to school districts: competitive bidding, DBB, and lease-back. They both have advantages. They both have disadvantages. Some school districts, some of our clients, use almost exclusively lease-back. Others are almost exclusively competitive bidding. And some mix and match depending on the nature of the project and which would be best. There are pros and cons for each one. Some of them have been alluded to tonight. For example, competitive bidding. It has an advantage because you have a low price. You have contractors sharpening their pencils, getting perhaps the lowest price possible. But the flip side of that is that they go too far and they may not have much of a profit margin, and they may be looking for ways to generate profit through change orders. And so there's a pro and a con.
I'm sorry, was that a con for the lease-leaseback, or was that a con in general?
Well, it's an advantage for competitive bidding that you'll get a price that may be lower, an initial price that may be lower, but it may be a negative for competitive bidding, in other words, a pro for lease-leaseback, because in the end, if you have additional change orders, the total price may be about the same or even more with competitive bidding. You just don't know, and it's hard in advance to do an analysis of which will be cheaper on a certain project. For me, when I was talking with Robert and Jenny about this project, what made this one stand out as a good candidate for lease-leaseback was the scheduling aspect. If there are schedule problems, it's not just inconvenient for the district and the students, it's also a very difficult situation to litigate, and there's a lot of money at stake, and you're dealing with a very short time window where you want to have an experienced contractor who knows how to handle any curves that are thrown at them, whether it's dry rot or something else. And if you go through competitive bidding, you don't have control over, I mean, the contractor has a license, he's authorized by the state to perform the work, but he may not, the low bidder may not be the most qualified contractor.
Okay, so I got one more question for you.
Mr. Sadler?
Wait a minute, one more question for you. It's pretty straightforward. Lozano Smith represents us, the district. They represent basically have represented our board, because we were the ones who brought you guys in. So from that perspective, and everyone seems to be favoring the lease-leaseback, and I want to make sure that I get an honest, straightforward opinion and not biased in any way, because not saying that anybody's biasing their opinion, but they're definitely in favor of one direction. From your perspective, what is the downside of lease-leaseback, and what is the downside for us if you're advising the board not being part of this consortium, but as our lawyers?
Generally speaking, when I advise clients about the downsides of lease-leaseback, I point to the flip side of what I've already mentioned, that when you are entering negotiations with contractors and picking them based more on the quality of their work and their experience, you're probably going to be paying a bit higher price. That's the downside. Now, in the end, you may be a better overall price, because you never know, the low bidder may have lots of change orders. But that's the downside. But the positive is that you're going to get a more quality contractor that you selected, one that you have confidence in to get the job done and to handle any problems that might arise. And my advice, as I've mentioned before to Elaine and Robert and Jenny, is for this particular project, it stands out. And I will be honest with you that I come from a background of representing many public entities, not just school districts, and school districts are very lucky to have this lease-leaseback delivery method. It does not exist for other entities like cities or counties, and it's nice to have that option. I often find myself personally drawn towards competitive bidding because it's the low price. But here, I really do think that this is a good match for lease-leaseback.
Thank you. Thanks for your
Mr.
indulgence.
Sadler, Ms. Crocker, and then I'd like the last word. Hopefully, it's the last word, because I'm hearing kind of the same themes repeated. You know what I mean? The answering the same question, or the different question is kind of answered. You know what I'm saying,
No,
folks?
I don't think you're listening.
Well, I'm hearing. Well. Anyway, Mr. Sadler and Ms. Crocker, and then myself.
I think you just answered my question, because you're saying we're going to get a higher caliber contractor with the lease-leaseback. because I get it, that's it, yeah.
Okay,
Never mind.
Ms. Crocker?
That's a general.
Because even though we have a low bid in the beginning, we can get change orders to nick us in the rear till we're, yeah, I got it.
Ms.
Thank you.
Crocker?
I can remember a past experience we had with Lincoln Roof, remember correctly? The contractor that got it was not qualified, did not have a work thing, and we ran into all kinds of troubles. So I very much support your feeling that this might be a good place to
I get it.
We do have a time.
That's good. Oops.
And I guess I get to say something last, and unless you want to say more. I think that being able to really drill a contractor and make sure that they are the best qualified is pretty important, because I think we have suffered with our roofs being improperly renovated and causing more dry rot and damage over time. And maybe if we had used the lease back, we would have been able to get a better idea of whether those contractors were competent. And I think the same thing for HVAC. We have had all sorts of HVAC problems and this is complicated controls and complicated, you're using the same, in many cases, the same units, but controlling them different. And I think having competent contractors is going to be really important. And so far, Vanner has done a great job of picking and getting projects underway. And so I'm very confident that you can do it with the lease back and not end up costing the district more than it has to cost us. So
Before Mr. Sandberg goes, I want to make sure that you understand that if something goes wrong, this is all on you, right? Because you're making the recommendation.
Well, that's when I step in and fix it. Right?
Okay, good. Okay.
But I won't have to, right?
Nicely done.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
There's a motion to move acceptance.
I'll second.
Second, please vote.
Sorry.
5 ayes. Thank you very much. Okay, next we move on to Chief Business Official Search Plan. This was requested by Mr. Mensinger, unless staff wants to set the stage with what they've done so far or plan to do. What would be your pleasure, Mr. Mensinger?
Oh, that's fine. If
Just want to get the ball rolling, basically, right?
yeah, very quickly, the reason I brought this forward is because I think that the board has different members of the board have very different ideas on how to fill this position. And I think that we need to talk about it and need to give staff direction on which way we want to go.
Okay, Mr. Irwin, do you want to kind of give staff's position and process so far?
Certainly. So since the announcement of Ms. Nielsen's retirement, we have put in place a timeline, which we shared in the update about what a timeline would look like. Of course, that's a draft. The different organizations that we would use to advertise the open position, certainly looking at, for example, FICMAT and CASBO, which are two state organizations that lots of CBOs look at. And then as far as the actual search itself, once the applications have been received and screened, then we would be using a panel process that would have both representatives of the school district, but in addition also technical panel representatives of those in school finance and also in the community. Then those would pare down that list of candidates. They would then be interviewed by the executive cabinet, and ultimately the superintendent would make a validation visit on a candidate who he wanted additional checking on, and then therefore would then bring forward a name to the board for appointment. It is our hope to have that all wrapped up in April, so that in early May, that there can be some overlapping between Ms. Nielsen and the new CBO.
This is a contract that we hold, correct, that the board, one of 3 contracts that the board holds.
One of four contracts. One of four contracts.
I had something. I just, being here as long as I have and working with different CBOs, and where we were a few years ago with the prior CBO that we had, and being fortunate enough to get Mrs. Nielsen with her vast experience, I just feel that we really, hit the jackpot in getting Elaine to come here. And I mean, I'd like to talk her out of retirement, but it's probably something she's been thinking about for a long time. But my thing on this is I want to make sure that she's involved in this whole process. And I mean, we got somebody with so many years of experience and everything, and I'm sure she knows probably, over 90% of the, prospective CBOs that might even, apply, and so I just want to make sure, Elaine, that you're, in the middle of everything, and I know you'll be there at the end with the superintendent council, but, throughout the whole thing, and making sure we do this right, okay? Thank you.
Ms. Crocker?
I guess my comment is that in the past, when we've gone out for CBO, we've had to go out a second time. And so I want to make sure that we get somebody here during the time when the candidates are out there available. So the sooner we can get moving on it, the happier I'm going to be. So I thank you for the update, because I think that it looks like it was a reasonable time schedule.
Mr. Mensinger?
That's the standard process for hiring. I think that with contract employees, we need to look at things a little bit differently. I, too, have been concerned about the fact that when we had a CBO, there was times when we had to go out 2-3 times, and it never seemed to, the process never seemed to go the way we wanted, and it always seemed to take longer. I'd like to entertain discussion on bringing in a search firm like Larry Alves and his group to help us search, and then go through a hiring process where I think that the board needs to be involved in some of the hiring as well. I do believe that the business office, all of the business office should be involved in it, because they're basically going to be working for the person. I think, principals should be involved. I think department chair or department heads like that deal with the business side, MOT people, nutrition, people like that who are dealing with this person on a daily basis, IT. Those people should be involved. So I do believe that we should have an inclusive process, but I also believe that we need to get help and to make sure that we screen and we get the right people involved. And I think that's a different process from our regular process. And the process that Mr. Irwin shared with us has no board involvement until the end, when the process is already done and a candidate is coming forward. I think that's too late for us.
Could you clarify for me what that prior board involvement would be prior to
Well, we would go through the search process with Leadership Associates, which means we would all they would collect information on what we need this person to do, what this person needs to be, what kind of background, all those kind of things, just like we did before. And from there, they would go out and do the search. And yes, it may take a little bit longer, but for me, having the right person in this job is far more important than filling it quickly. So I think that, yes, we lucked out with Ms. Nielsen, but we have a string of CBOs that for one reason or another didn't quite fit what the board wanted and to see in their performance. So
you're not suggesting that we do the actual screening and interviewing, though? which is something
Well,
that
I think that
I think is
I think
the
that we should.
superintendent's responsibility.
Well, I think that the board, the CBO is a contract that is owned by the board, and is one of the top 4 positions in the district, and I think that we should be involved, which doesn't mean that we relinquish all controls to staff to pick this person. I think that the board needs to be involved in the selection of the CBO.
Ms. Crocker and then Mr. Rodriguez.
I'm looking for the past. Did we use help in getting the past CBOs? We ever used it for the CBOs?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember.
I would say in the time that I've been in the HR department, we've done both where we've done them internally and we've done a search where we actually hired an outside firm.
And actually, the most successful hire that we've had has been with Superintendent Mark in finding someone that was good.
Yes.
So if we're looking at success, you know, I don't know that sometimes the search firms work and sometimes they don't. Because we need to have a person that's a known person that's going to work with us. And I think that, you know, I don't know if you've got any hot candidates that you're thinking about. I mean, it depends upon whether there's somebody out there that could fit the bill that would want to come to Newark versus whether we're going to have to hit the streets and search all over California to get someone to come to Newark.
Yeah.
I think it depends upon whether we've got somebody there or not.
Mr. Rodriguez?
I know that Charlie and I have been on different sides recently, but in this particular case, I agree with them 100%. And again, I want Mrs. Nielsen involved because she knows the search firm that Member Mensinger, I'm sure they're very qualified and they did a great job in bringing us Dr. Markin. But, you know, to me, a CBO and looking at prior when we didn't have a good CBO, which seems like it just happened too many times, and what the problems we have, that we got to make sure we do this right, and getting a search firm that's really experienced in the CBO part, and they will have a mechanism that will get us involved. And I also feel that they will have a mechanism in getting the community involved, because, you know, the community, you know, needs to be involved, I feel, in choosing the CBO of the future that we have. So again, Mrs. Nielsen, I'm hoping you help us, because you know search firms that are really great at the CBO thing, where it might be a little different than the superintendent search. And I agree with, again, Member Mensinger, this is a contract employee, and even though this person is contracted with us, and the search firm, I feel, is a good way to go. Okay.
Mr. Stadler?
Yeah, I agree with Charlie too. We got to do this one right, and I think we should go with the search firm. Of course, Ms. Nielsen should be involved. Community also. I mean, this is a big decision, and this person will probably be here longer than a lot of us and a lot of other people in this district. So I honestly think we owe it to this community, we owe it to the school district to do this the right way and get a search firm and get it done.
Yeah, okay. As far as I'm concerned, if we do go for a search firm, I think, you know, staff and Ms. Nielsen, the 4 of you executives have a lot of contacts in a lot of different areas, and you mentioned FICMAT. I didn't realize they did searches, but certainly, you know, CASBO and school services and all those organizations. I don't think CSBA does it anymore, but I think it would be important to hire a firm that knows a lot of CBOs, that they don't primarily do superintendent searches, but that they do CBO searches. So, and that they're recently been involved in doing the work of, you know, so they have recent contacts in that. So if they're just recently retired and now they're doing this as consulting, that someone that knows a lot of CBOs across the state, that's kind of, because it's word of mouth. It's kind of, you know, person to person recruiting. It was the firm that Mr. Mensinger mentioned that made a personal call to our current superintendent. Hooray, you know? It's those personal relationships that I'd like to specify are really important. So now Mr. Mensinger and then Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, very, very quickly. I'm not suggesting a search firm because I don't have confidence in a traditional way. What I'm saying is it's the best of both worlds. We have a very experienced CBO who knows a lot of people. We have an experienced superintendent who's been around a long time, who knows a lot of people. Obviously, he brought in our CBO. We have an assistant superintendent of HR who knows most of the people in Northern California. Okay, so, and with Dr. Hilberg and her connections as well, we have the ability to not only use our internal resources, but use these external to get the right candidates in, and also to be able to tell any search firms, yeah, not a good one. Okay, and that's perfect. I just think that in the end, this will bring us the better recruits. You know, in the past we've seen, you know, and I know this is probably going to offend some people, but we've seen the math teacher that got their administrative degree that became an assistant principal that moved into the district office and became a CBO. And while that's a great career progression, the CBO did not have the finance background and the accounting background that we absolutely need, because we have a hands-on person like Ms. Nielsen had. We've had people who were great managers, but technically did not understand.
And didn't know systems.
And didn't know systems.
Ms. Nielsen knows systems.
So that's my point. And again, I'm sorry if I offended anybody who met those criteria that I was stating. For me, a business person, not only, I mean, Ms. Nielsen has absolutely no emotions at all until you go in the red somewhere, and then she's like a tiger coming out of the cage. You know, otherwise it's money, and it's perfect. That's exactly what we need. Somebody who, you know, has, you know, who looks after the money, watches the money, helps people justify. Or tells people you have no justification for this, because she understands the systems.
Ms. Crocker.
I think we're getting close to 10 o'clock. Go ahead and.
Would you, I'd entertain a motion to extend the meeting.
Half hour.
Okay, we extend the meeting to 10:20.
We probably wouldn't even need it, but yeah, sure.
10:20 or 10:30?
10:30. Okay, please vote.
Okay. I guess my question is, do you have anybody?
Everyone concurs, okay.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Crocker, you have to vote. There we go.
Got to vote. Okay. All right about that. Yes.
Who was the second? I'll be the second. I'm not supposed to, but okay.
You can.
I know I can.
I guess my question is there anybody in the wings that people know personally that, because Dave had an idea of someone he knew personally, and so do we need to go through the search, or do we have someone that is a potential?
I'm going to put back over my HR hat on that. I think that question might get us a little bit into personnel.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. The way I will answer it is the executive cabinet has been looking at lots of different people who we know, and, you know, getting, a member mentioned word of mouth, but any comment about specific and where?
Okay, that if we were to say, go ahead with the process you have there, and if we do not have a certain number of candidates by a certain time, then we go for the search?
Well, I certainly know with, I certainly know with the search that a search firm, one of the first things they talk to us about is, are there any candidates who you're looking at, because those are people who they can reach out to. So they'll not want to discount that. So we'll have that ability to share that with them.
If we do a search firm, where the sooner the better?
If we do a search firm, there's two ways that we can go. We can bring in a couple of firms who do this, and they're interviewed before the board. That's what we did, we've done before. Staff can pick one of there's a half dozen out there who do searches. We'll need to bring it before the board, I'm sure, because of contract and the amount of money of contract. So it will just really depend on how much the board wants to be involved in the selection of the search firm, or not.
Will it be more than 20,000? Because you can authorize.
We can authorize up to that. That's the thing. We haven't done one with the CBO.
It's only around 50, to my understanding.
Well, we did, when we searched for the superintendent, we didn't go out and bid. We just used Leadership Associates because that's who we used in the past.
I know, but I
But
mean,
the contract still needed to be
bring it
approved.
to us, and we
Yeah.
have to wait 2 weeks to bring it to us.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we haven't done with an outside firm for the CBO in a long time, so we would have to find out for them what that service.
We actually used Leadership Associates because they're the ones who brought in the temporary CBO before we got the CBO.
But I would like personally to interview 2 or 3, that's just what I want.
You want to be involved in the interview?
Yeah.
Oh, me too.
Search.
Right, search.
I agree.
It's going to take longer.
Oh, well, it's a big decision. Oh, well.
And the superintendent, you've spoken with him, you're saying what he would say? I mean, you're not saying, I mean, of course, it's the board direction that counts, but would he counter our?
Well, I think when the superintendent and I have spoken about this item, one of the things that we wanted to do was to put forward what our internal process would be, and the fact that as a district, we've both done internal and we've done, for lack of a better, external or search firms for the CBO. Obviously, traditionally, a search firm is used in looking at the role of superintendency, because you don't want your own HR department, in a sense, hiring their boss. That's a little different when you get to the next level. I did just recently look in EdCal, which is one of the magazines that search firms and/or districts are going to advertise this level of position in. It's interesting, right now in the state of California, there's only 2 CBO positions that are open, and it's 50-50. One is using a search firm and one is doing it inside. So, you know, and that's just looking at the most recent edition of EdCal.
I'm hearing that this board kind of was leaning toward a search firm, so do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we use a search firm.
I'll second it.
Before we go to vote, can we discuss it a little bit more too?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, so moving forward with a search firm is, you know, I'm okay with that. Obviously, I brought it up. I know. But the process beyond that, we also need to talk about, okay? Because how much is the board going to be involved? How much do we, you know, like I said, I'd like to see, you know, the business office involved, because they would be working with that person directly, and they probably know the systems as certainly better than us, certainly better than others. And then I'd like to see some of the, you know, the principals and the department heads who work with the CBO have some input. And I know this process is going to take a little while, but there are ways to expedite this, especially if staff has a list of people that they know, and we obviously we can't ask this, but they may be sitting on somebody that they want to bring in, and if that's the case, they talk to us or talk to the search firm, and that's how we got Dr. Markin.
Yeah, but the difference here is if we agree on a search firm and interviewing 2 or 3, I think, in my opinion, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. The search firm is going to take us through this, and they're going to get our input, and then they're also going to get input from principals, and that's the way it was done before. I don't see any difference.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will happen, and we can ask for it to happen.
Yeah, that was the only point that I was going to say, is with the search firm, once we've settled on one and signed a contract, they'll have an entire process, and they'll come before you and
I
talk
think
to
we
you.
need to agree on a search firm first, and then we walk down
Okay,
that road.
are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
What are we voting on?
We're voting
for a search firm.
to using a search firm.
Okay. Okay.
There's 4 ayes and 1 no.
All right, done.
I think it should be done internally.
You think it should be done
I think
internally?
it should be done internally first. And if the staff feels we have a need for a search firm, we go to it.
Okay, and then we're off to expulsions. Do I have a motion?
I move that Mr. Bowman's staff recommendation for item A, which is case number E091004, E101125, and E1314-01.
I'll second it. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Member Crocker. Please vote. 5 ayes. Oh, wait a minute, I hit the wrong button. I hit the wrong button. I am voting aye, yes.
Let's vote again.
Okay, do it again.
Make sure you get it right this time, President Tom.
I thought, who voted no? Who voted no? Okay.
Who was that crazy?
Who was that?
I move we accept staff recommendation for case E0809-19 and E1213-15.
I'll second it.
That's B, right?
Right, item B.
Yes, sir.
Please vote.
You got the right button, Nancy?
Yep.
Can I be the first
5
one?
ayes.
Can I be the first one to speak?
Yes, and so we're moving on, and Mr. Stadler would like to be the first person to speak on.
Gotta figure out what button to push here. Is it on? All right. I drove by the junior high a couple times, and Charlie, I know you drove by. And if you remember back when we started talking to Vanner, we talked about those gates and how those gates look like a prison. And we talked about how those gates could have a cloth behind them, or how those gates could have something that didn't make them look vertical. Well, I'm going to tell you what was done. They were painted. They're still hanging. They're still lopsided. And I was very disheartened to find out that somebody approved $15,000 to $20,000 to beautify the corner of Lafayette and Newark, rather than putting that money into those gates. We have
So, do you have a request in there someplace?
a request for what?
Because this is board requests.
No, I'm just gonna tell, all I'm telling you is I want us to look into these gates. And I think these gates need to be fixed. It looks like a prison.
Do you have anything else to report? Mr. Menzinger.
Well, that's a little concerning to me as well. The corner of Lafayette and Newark Boulevard is city property, not school property. If we put a penny into doing that, then we've used funds. That's that corner. The corner is that corner. The corner.
Isn't that our property?
I mean, you mean outside the gate on the street, or, because that.
I think they're talking about that fence. Is that what they're talking about, Elaine, the fence? My whole thing is we need to bring it back to the school.
Well, I don't remember those kind of things being approved by the board, and those kind of that kind of bothers me, because if we're spending that kind of money on that, we could be using that money towards classrooms, towards better places. Why would we beautify that section, especially when the principal himself said he didn't want that money spent there?
He wants those gates fixed.
He wants the gates fixed, but he doesn't want that area beautified. So, yeah, I have a request. Let's not spend the money there. Let's spend the money somewhere else better.
The request is to ask for an agenda item on this. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'd like to have
an
yes.
action on it.
Let's have a conversation.
Yeah, we should be.
No, I wanted to bring it.
That's right. So so what? Yeah,
request to have an agenda item about the spending.
Yeah, and then the discussion should happen then. Okay. Ms. Crocker?
Oh, no, I'm not done yet.
Oh.
I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet.
I tried.
I know. Well, but this is something good. I wanted to let you guys know that today I was invited over to the high school to play a justice of the Supreme Court in a mock trial. I'm better looking. But so the case was a very interesting case. It was about it had to do with an NRA case being brought to the Supreme Court with the use of assault weapons, and the teacher and I, as well as other students, absolutely grilled both sides, as you know I can do. And yes, we did not, we took off the gloves. I mean, we went at them real hard, and those kids performed extremely well.
Is my son going to talk about you tonight?
He wasn't one of the kids, but we did have some very, very interesting comments, and I'll just share one with you that, and I'm so proud of these kids because they stepped up very well. But one of the comments, they were bringing up Soviet Russia, the Soviet Union, and the use of guns, and they compared that to the United States. And I asked the kid point blank, "Are you comparing the United States of America to Soviet Russia?" And without blinking, he said yes. And I thought, wow, that will be on Anderson 360 with a headline, you know. But you know what? He stood his ground and he stood his argument, and it was, you know, I was so proud of it, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot, but it was a great experience for me, and I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay, Ms. Crocker.
Yeah, a couple of things. Number one, I went to Shelley. I had a chance to see the anti-bully program that the students had organized for their students, or for their parents rather. And so they talked about the witness, the role of the witness, the role of the victim, and the role of the perpetrator. And it was very nicely done, and was very well attended. I'm sorry that I missed the Schilling career night, which I understand was unbelievable. So anyhow, it was nice to get there and get back into the swing of things after being out of town for a long time.
You missed the weather back east?
Pardon me?
You missed the weather back
just
east?
like it was when I was back there. What can I say? And you notice I got a cold when I came home. I had not a runny nose when I was in Massachusetts. Come back to California. And I think it's allergies rather than the cold. And the second thing had to do with the Joint Task Force for Youth in terms of meetings. I mean, you let me know when they are, because I'd like to sort of sit in the audience.
Sure.
To know what's going on. Okay?
There's
Other
one
than
coming
that,
up, actually.
We have one coming up.
What is it today?
I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
I'll check my email.
I'll check it on my phone. I'll check it on my
If you just forward an email to me, I'd appreciate it.
Actually, I was told by someone from the city that they didn't have a quorum.
No, we didn't. We canceled it because Dave was out of town.
Dave is not a member.
Dave Markin?
Dave
He's
Markin.
only the city council.
In what?
For this.
Joint Youth Task Force?
Yeah, but he couldn't
He's
make
there,
it,
but he's not a member.
He couldn't make
Oh,
it.
he was with us. Oh, somebody else couldn't make it.
Okay, anyway.
Dave's not a member? He is a member.
No, he's not a voting member.
He's not a voting member.
He's
He's staff.
In terms of canceling the meeting because, or not being
Okay,
able to.
maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Instead of not being able to have.
You're out of
action,
turn, by the way.
You have to have a quorum.
We just didn't do it because he wasn't there.
Anyway, you have to have a quorum to vote. There was no quorum then.
Okay. I'll tell
Okay.
you when our next one.
That takes care of the youth task force. Guys.
Okay.
I just had a couple of things. One, I heard about the Supreme Court judge, and I heard that from the students that Member Menzinger came in with an agenda, and they didn't appreciate his attitude. That's what I heard.
And your point?
Just like we don't. But anyway, ROP has and I know you were going to mention it, educators brunch on Thursday. So I hope everybody can make it.
Who's this?
Mission Valley RP. Okay. And Mr. Irwin already mentioned the community, the African American Cultural Society has their get-together on the 8th, is it? At the community center, and that's always great, so I'm hoping that you guys. Now, I missed the career thing. I got ill and at Schilling, and I heard it was just super. And Raphael, you know, with the other people at Schilling, did a great job, and it's something I hope that the other elementary schools, because doing that at the 6th grade level, and there was a speaker there that was from Schilling that went through Stanford, and the kids just, among others, it was just an excellent event. So hopefully that'll continue. So, and then Myra Borgen got that award, and I'm hoping that President Thomas and with Dr. Markin can invite her so we can, you know.
That'd be a good idea.
Okay, if that's okay.
So we can have some cookies.
Right.
Yeah,
And then I had a question from Mr. Stadler on the corner of Lafayette and Newark Boulevard. Are you talking about the fence and that area being cleaned up?
I think what they were talking about, and Elaine, correct me if I'm wrong, was a non-climb fence, tampering down some dirt and putting new dirt in.
Okay.
Yeah,
No, the
right.
reason I mentioned that is, as a board, we've asked staff to look at beautifying our sites, and one of the issues was all the debris around fences and everything, because that makes the whole school look terrible.
All I'm saying is those gates look off.
No, and we'll have that conversation, okay? So, I'm good, thank you.
I went to CIF last weekend, and it was just an outstanding meeting, but there's some important decisions coming down that may be made. Practice time, making sure that there's not more than 18 hours of practice time a week was one of them. Another one is changing the rules about actually participating in a club sport at the same time you're participating in the sport that you're in at the high school.
Out of a club for the high school or a club outside of the school?
Club outside the school. So if you're on a soccer team for the high school and then you're on a soccer team for a club, there's rules around that, and they're not consistent, and many states are just doing away with the rule. So those are some of the things that are coming up that folks are going to be voting on, and so I'm asking our athletic director to weigh in on what she thinks about those things. Also, Mr. Stadler and I are helping out with the crab feed, and I think it would be really nice if this board would donate enough so we can provide a door prize. I know in the past we donated enough to pay for most of a TV set for. So can we kind of?
We brought it.
Yeah,
I'm fine with
yeah.
that too.
Yeah, me too. We
I
bought
mean-
bread one year and.
No, we got all
I
the
mean,
breads on me.
can we say like $250?
How much?
$50 each?
$50.
Oh, okay, I thought you said 250 each.
Well, $50
Why don't we
each.
discuss it over email instead of here? And
Well, no, anyway, yes, okay. $50 each. And with that, meeting adjourned.
200.